All right. I believe, I really hope this means we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions, welcome to another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, aka Some Gadget Guy, the SGG of this terribly named podcast series. But the QA is the important part. Hopefully it's the important part. We've been going through a couple weeks of the Q&A not really being functional, as I've been trying to troubleshoot stream issues with this service that I'm using called Restream. And I'm gonna trust, I've done literally 20 minutes of mic testing before getting up to this stream. So imagine all of the complexity of putting together a podcast, and then you go to broadcast because you want to do a live show and have interactions with a fun audience, and then no one can hear you, or the people who can hear you are hearing garbled, distorted, terrible audio. And you can imagine how soul crushing that would be, how gutting that would be, and how frustrating that would be. And that's been the reality of this podcast for the last two episodes, where one, I just ended up doing a solo recorded off air episode. And last week we powered through. But if you listen to the audio broadcast of last week's show, it sounds really good. I mean, like, I really liked how that sounded. So this week, and this is again, I've gone through 2 weeks of tech support. Now I want to point this out. I really feel this is important. I've been contacting Restream. Restream is the service where I stream up to Restream. So I only have enough bandwidth to get one good high quality stream going up, because cable broadband sucks. And then Restream has a bunch of servers and they link to my other accounts, and that's why I can co-stream on Twitch and YouTube, on LinkedIn. I have a stream on Facebook. I've not logged into my Facebook account in uh, basically since the pandemic. I gave up on Facebook. But Restream tackles all that for me. For the last 3 weeks, I have done almost nothing to change the audio setup that I'm running. The audio setup that I am using right now has stayed consistent for 380 episodes of this podcast. I've gone from a cabled mic to a wireless mic over years of streaming. But over the last 3 weeks, I've not changed anything, because when I broadcast, I would get this distorted, staticky, crackly audio with lots of dropouts. And then I would shut off the stream and do a recording, and the recording would sound great. So I went to the folks at Restream and I said, hey, there's a problem. Can you check this out? And so they immediately start like, well, if you're using NVIDIA broadcast, that's probably your problem. It's really high, resource intensive. I've got a Threadripper with a 2080, I mean, with a 4070 Ti. It's not, it's not NVIDIA broadcast. And NVIDIA broadcast worked great on the recording. Well, obviously the problem is your Rode Wireless Go 2. No, because I used the Rode Wireless Go 2 on the broadcast that you heard all the static, and then I also used it on the recording that you didn't hear any of the static. And so from last week to this week, I'm really making a point of being as pissy about this as I can. I have changed nothing. We did the stream last week, staticky and garbled. I immediately went and recorded another sample just off air, sounded great. Went up and did a live stream, a private live stream directly to YouTube. Just my setup directly to YouTube. Sounded great. This morning, did another recording, sounded great. This audio setup has not changed. You're hearing the exact same audio setup. Rode Wireless Go 2 into NVIDIA broadcast software is managing, this. I don't know that this is working very well. Oh, it's working a little better. The video framing. Okay. Last week that wasn't working as well. So I guess maybe something has changed on NVIDIA's end. I seriously doubt it. I haven't read any updates. I haven't changed anything. So if you heard staticky garbled audio on the stream last week, you're hearing the exact same setup on my end. Maddening. So at present, right now, Restream is one of the cheapest ways that you can sign up and do this kind of co-streaming stuff. And If you're using Restream, I hope you never have tech support issues, because the tech support immediately just tried to pass the buck. It's obviously your wireless mic. It's obviously your NVIDIA broadcast. And you're like, I've gone through every bit. What you need to do is change a whole bunch of settings, and then you need to record a 5-minute sample. And then you need to change a whole bunch of settings and then record another 5-minute sample, and then do another and another. And then we can figure out what the issue is. Literally, the issue is just seems to be inconsistency on their platform. And how messed up is that? Because I bet you, if I just kept changing things over and over and over again, eventually I would figure out, or I would land on a clean stream. But then it's just a crapshoot. What was really the problem? I was changing one variable at a time: broadcast versus recording locally. Or no, broadcast versus recording off air on their server. Why would there be any difference? And one of their tech support people actually said, oh, well, what you're probably hearing is the difference in compression. And you're like, you can't be telling me that your compression is leading to static and cutouts and dropouts. That can't be what you're telling me. And it's like, I know for a fact that humans have not actually listened to these audio samples that I'm jumping through hoops to record for you. So even though this stream apparently is sounding a little bit better than last week, I am going to be migrating. It takes so much time out of my production day to handle this stuff. I'm going to be migrating to StreamYard. StreamYard is way more expensive than Restream, but I guess you get what you pay for. So that's a massive bummer. Anyway, I hope everybody's doing great. We've got a great list of names in this chat right now. I'm seeing Jonathan. I got Uncle Gamer. Have you tried turning it off and on again? Apparently, Restream turned something off and on again, because I have not changed anything. We got Ponus P. We got Simon Says Hypno. Jonathan M. Cable does suck. Recently switched to AT&T Fiber, and it has been great and a whole lot cheaper. I would take out anyone to get fiber to home in my neighborhood. You would just have to tell me who, when, and whether or not you wanted it to look like an accident or you wanted me to send a message. I want fiber so bad. And as soon as I can get fiber, I can walk away from Restream and StreamYard, and I'll just line up. What could be kind of fun is running the stream from a lower power PC and then using a beefier PC to do all the upload, right? Like I could use this workstation just as like a server, basically, to send up each individual. Because I also have a 10 gig NIC in this PC, because I'm a little overkill on this workstation build, but I don't have the bandwidth. I could walk away from all of this stupid subscription thing that I'm having to pay for to co-stream. Oh, it'd be so nice, because I really don't want to be on YouTube. I appreciate all the people who are chatting on YouTube right now. I gotta tell y'all, it is still miserable running podcasts through YouTube. I really do not like how YouTube is handling that kind of audience management and the organization of episodes, what it does to your channel metrics if your channel has other videos and podcasts. This is really bad for my YouTube, but it's also where I'm trying to reach people to chat. So I would like to take this moment, just a quick pause before we get into some housekeeping here. One Mr. Simon Says Hypno has subscribed with Prime on Twitch, been subscribed for 43 months, and is currently on a 28-month streak. Simon, you rock. Thank you so much for supporting production on this channel. Because I have a myriad of audio issues, I'm not even going to try to plug in my little effects board right now. I'm not touching anything so long as the audio is sounding pretty good. So you get one acapella. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate all the folks out there who are sharing, who are supporting, commenting, thumbs upping, subscribing, and of course, subscribing on Twitch means something a little different. So again, that financial nudge, again, it helps us keep the lights on here in the Gadget Lab, and I greatly appreciate it. So let me scroll this back here. Oh, Kathy Tappan. Sure enjoy watching you, Juan. So proud of you. Hugs from New York. Hey, Kathy, I see you. Thanks for jumping in. I love it. From Colin Murphy, hearing what you're saying allows me to think, quote, so it's not just me? And this comes as such a relief. At a time we should all shake our fists at the sky together. All right. I hope everybody out there had a lovely weekend. It was a really busy weekend, and I'm gonna have just that little moment of proud papa as my daughter is just kind of blowing me away right now. So she just started up a new season, a new rec season of softball. This is the we're getting into the spring season, and Saturday the girls softball league out here does like a whole parade, and all the girls dress up in like team themed costumes, and they make banners and they walk around the high school track. It is super cute. We're playing music and dancing and stuff. It's really awesome. And then she had her first game on Sunday, and this is she's only been playing now for one whole calendar year. So her very first, she'd never swung a bat before last spring. And this spring now, she's one of the older girls. So she stayed in the same age group. So she started at 8U, which is kind of like 7 to 9 year olds, depending on when your birthday falls on the calendar. And so she was able to do a second season at 8U. So she went from being one of the younger kids on the team with zero experience to being one of the older girls on the team. And she's still not one of the most experienced players. There are girls that have been playing since T-ball that are now coming up to 8U. And she's really been working. This little 9-year-old girl has been working her booty off, doing extra reps. Just, hey, Dad, you want to go out and throw the ball around? Hey, let's buy a cheap used catcher's pad just so I can practice doing some catcher work. Hey, can we go to the batting cage? And if you're a dad like me who was an athlete and a dancer, and your daughter comes up to you and says, "Hey, Dad, do you want to go play catch in the backyard?" It is so much Americana, I can't handle it. It's like everything I can do to not just break down in a sobbing mess every time she comes up to me and says like, "Hey, do you want to go and do this? Hey, do you want to go and work this out? Hey, can you work on me with my swing?" Yes, I absolutely want to do that. Let's go. So she had her first game on Sunday, and she looked so strong out on the field. This is a girl who a year ago would be out in the outfield, spinning around in circles, dancing to the other team's walk-up music, chewing on her glove, and then missing the ball that would go her way. And this year, in her first game, she catches a wild pitch from, because this is kid pitch. She catches a wild pitch. She sees the runner on first making the run to second, and she fires a throw from home to second that could have gotten that girl out if the girl on second had actually made that catch. And that blew us away. It wasn't like the coach said, "Oh, Lex, make the throw to second." Lex saw it on her own. I'm telling you, as a 44-year-old dude, I'm having trouble making the throw from home to second. And this little 9-year-old made the throw from home to second, and the ball didn't bounce. Yeah, it was a pretty good weekend. And then also we finished her first game. We came home. We had some friends over for the big game. It was a superb owl. Um, I have not watched any football this season, and I really feel like the marketing is getting it just excessively silly. So, um, in our little friend group, that most of our friend group is much more into football than Marie and I are. Marie and I are baseball and soccer people, and lately I've just been kind of getting into rugby. Like rugby's really cool. Um, and so we're watching the game and we're listening to our friends talk about what the season has been like, and all of the lead up to the big game is this like Titans taking the field, gladiators about to do battle, America is this and the posturing of the amazing spectacle that you are about to behold for this season. And then the game was a total blowout. Like it wasn't close. It wasn't close at all. And all of the people sitting there have already kind of resigned themselves to this game probably being lopsided, like before kickoff. The commentary was like, yeah, I mean, KC had a really weak season and they like got themselves out of a lot of jams, but I don't see how they're going to pull this one out. And of course, the big thing was whether or not Kansas City was going to be a three-peat, right? Are we going to see 3 Super Bowl wins in a row? And so I'm watching, and you're like, well, but I mean, they made it to the Super Bowl, so they must be a really strong team. And then they just had no answers for what Philadelphia was throwing out there. And so at halftime, we're watching the Kendrick Lamar thing, and my wife and my friend Jenny are way more into the Kendrick Lamar stuff and the Drake beef, and I'm like just the fog periphery of awareness of what's going on with that. I mean, I'm an old school hip hop head. I haven't really kept up with what the current beefs are. But I'm chatting, and then we fall into this conversation. I have a pod. This is all building to a podcast recommendation. So I'm sitting with my friend Tuck and my friend Darren, and we're just chatting about like how the game's been going so far. And Tuck brings up Michael Lewis, Against the Rules. That's the name of the podcast. And season 5 of this podcast is all about sports betting because we've been just seeing tons of sports betting commercials too. So we end up going off on this like deep dive that takes us through the third quarter, just talking about the season. My friend Darren hadn't been watching the podcast, listening to the podcast, but me and Tuck had. So we were just telling Darren, oh yeah, and this. And then if you go to DraftKings, they can just kill your account if you win too much money. And it's like, there's no regulation. All of their algorithms can find the most problematic gamblers. I just shared these stats where if you legalize gambling in a state, you immediately see savings accounts fall. You immediately see defaults and you see bankruptcies rise, and then you also see a spike in domestic abuse whenever the home team loses. I mean, it's like the stats just look miserable for every possible humanity tracking number that you can put up for legalizing sports betting on apps. And it's just like, this is horrific. Why are we allowing this to happen? Oh, and by the way, buy more stuff and gamble, and here's the Super Bowl commercials that we're all sitting through and stuff. So it was pretty wild. It was some heavy conversation in the middle of a very mediocre football game. Like this, nothing about watching this last Super Bowl has convinced me that I need to get back into this sport. The money is ridiculous. The fans are subsidizing insane costs. The stadiums are just getting ruthlessly stupid. Uh, the NFL still, I think, is claimed as like a not-for-profit, so they're not even like getting taxed on just billions and billions and billions of dollars. And there's this one line at the very beginning of the Michael Lewis Against the Rules podcast on season 5, where what do you call someone who keeps paying more and more and more for the same product, and you can't even guarantee that the product is going to be enjoyed? You think about the product of football, and you win some games and you lose some games. You can't guarantee that there was an enjoyable product based on a hardcore fan's involvement in this game. But the fans have not seemed to have found their breaking point. Everything about football is getting horrifically expensive, but they keep paying for it. And you would call someone like that in any other industry with any other product, if it's food stuff or if it's drugs, you would call that person an addict. And we have unfortunately built a population of the United States into a form of consumption that is now treating one football game like it's some kind of national holiday, which is wild to me. My wife and I watched the playoffs through the um, through the World Series. I always chuckle at when we say it's the World Series because it's like, oh, America wins again, but we're really into baseball. There is so much less of this posturing and bravado. And when you watched the Dodgers versus the Mets, that is some of the best baseball I've seen. It was so much fun. The Mets were playing at a tier I was not expecting. The Dodgers were rising to the occasion. It was just glorious baseball through the playoffs. And you're like, this is so much fun. And then we're sitting watching the Super Bowl, and you're like, we put so much on one game, and that one game was a total woof. It was like, it could not have been duller to just see one team rock. I mean, my friend Darren's super into Philadelphia, so he was loving it. But even he, I mean, like after a point, you're just not even really watching the game. So what was the point? It was pretty wild to me. So unfortunately, I will probably continue to be a lapsed football fan. But let me tell y'all, rugby's looking really good right now. I'm just saying, like, the athleticism, the way that players take hits, the way that players dictate action on the field, the setups, like, I'm kind of digging it. I know very little about rugby, but I've just been going through and YouTubing like recent games and matches and like tournaments and stuff. I'm digging it. I think this is going to be my new thing. I'm just going to let that kind of simmer for a bit. I got a quick shout out here. A huge thank you to JMan150 on the Twitch. Gifted a tier 1 sum to Cookies 2. I think that's how you say it, Cookies. So, and J-Man, thank you so much for supporting and also sharing, because you brought someone else into a tier 1 sub. I really do appreciate that. And you get another acapella fanfare of glory because my audio setup is hanging by a thread. And then Kapakash also saying, hello, everybody. Happy Monday. I'm happy my Eagles won. Good job, Eagles. You played a heck of a game. I'm very excited. Oh, Bionic Scoop. Okay. So thank you for again, how out of touch I am with anything NFL. They dropped the nonprofit status in 2015, by the way. So think about the entire industry of football up to this point, 10 years ago. They were still considered a nonprofit. Okay. All right. All right, y'all. We have so much show to get through. Let me take a quick sip of coffee here, and then we can just knock out a couple articles and videos that I've posted and get into some links. There's a lot. This is actually a pretty beefy show, and I didn't mean for the intro to go quite this long. Okay. So, very good. I actually got a few things published last week. Last week was just a really challenging week in general, and I spent like way too much time trying to troubleshoot audio stuff. But I was really happy with a couple of posts that we got done. First up, this is just going live publicly. This was something that I published on the Patreon first. So let me screen share this. The Google Pixel Buds Pro 2 long-term review, smaller, but not really smaller. And ultimately, I have to give. All right, let me unscreen share here. Ultimately, I have to give the Google Pixel Buds 2 a positive review. They do almost all of what Google claims they can do really well. And I'm really not trying to talk people down if they have purchased the Buds 2, the Buds Pro 2, and they like what they hear. But there are a couple of small issues that I worry consumers don't understand when you talk about audio and when you talk about earbuds. So one, the size on these and the weight on these is really impressive. The casing is small. They're these cute little buttons. They don't weigh a lot. But that doesn't mean if you have smaller ears that they're going to be a great fit for you. And then two, I do actually have a personal issue with the sound quality. It's not bad, but there is a specific aspect of tuning to these buds that makes them a bit more challenging to get the right color, the right shape, what you're looking for in a pair of earbuds, especially if you're a bit more of a bass head, especially if you're a bit more of a skull rumbler. But I have gone on record in numerous videos talking about how I'm a mids junkie. And even though I'm a mids junkie, the Pixel Buds are still lean for me, which means they gotta be really lean. So again, I want people to be just a little aware that when you go through a lot of earbuds and a lot of headphones, like nerds like me, and I'm sure numerous people in the chat here do too, often I feel people confuse the novelty of a new kind of tuning with an improvement or a degradation in sound quality. That was a really long-winded way of saying when you hear something different, psychologically, if you like the brand, you'll probably associate that with an improvement in sound quality. But if you hear something different and you're ambivalent towards the brand or you don't like the brand, you'll probably associate that difference in sound quality as a negative. So if you're used to Apple AirPods and you really like Apple, you're all in on Apple, and then you switch to, I don't know, something like Odyssey, you hear how that's different than your Apple AirPods. Because you like Apple, you'll probably associate the difference in sound from Odyssey as a negative. Even though every time I put planar magnetics up against, just brand name, like electronics brand, like Samsung earbuds, Apple earbuds, OnePlus earbuds, every time I do that, I just tend to prefer the tone, articulation, color, representation, and space on planars. Right now, those are my jam. So this is the thing that you've got to break through where, let's say you really love your Pixel phone, these are the earbuds that are a part of the Pixel ecosystem, and then you listen to them, that's what you're going to start tuning your expectations towards. And then if you hear something different, well, that's different than what I know I like, that's probably a bad thing. So that's a part of what goes into, it's a part of what I'm trying to accomplish in this review, is just kind of like breaking down. There are reasons why different pieces of hardware, different kinds of audio technologies, different kinds of codecs contribute to what you hear. And so that makes a big difference on where you should spend around $200 on a pair of earbuds. Because like I also have cabled earbuds that are like a quarter that price that sound really good. If it's about audio quality, 200 doesn't mean you're getting the best audio quality. So I got to do another quick pause. You guys are just keeping me hopping here. This is lovely. On the Twitch, we got Kepper MN, subscribed to Prime, have been subscribed for 60 months. Whoa, that's 5 years. You have been subscribed on my Twitch channel, I think, for the entire duration that I have been on Twitch. I can't remember when I started streaming on Twitch like consistently. I think that does take us back to, I had a Twitch account before, but I had gotten off of YouTube. Like I had just completely stopped streaming on YouTube. So Kepper MN, you also get an acapella fanfare of glory. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the support and the consistency of support. Just keeping up. I really do appreciate you. Right, moving right along. This one was super fun because I put it together literally in the morning that I published this video. This is an update to an app that came out a little while ago on iPhones, but of course, when that same kind of work makes its way to Android, no one cares. Except for me. Almost no videos went out on this update, but if you're rocking the Blackmagic camera app, which you should be doing if you like shooting video from your phones, the 2.0 update now brings an incredible new feature. Again, the reason why people didn't cover it is because they only talk about things when they go to iPhones and iPads. But on Android and Android phones and Android tablets, now we too can play with this multi-camera setup. So what I did is I took 4 phones and I paired them to my OnePlus Pad 2, and I purposely went out of my way to find phones that weren't the mostest popularist. So we would expect that if Blackmagic were updating this app, they'd make sure that Samsungs were supported. But I did, what did I do? I did a OnePlus, I did a OnePlus 12, OnePlus 13, a Xiaomi 14, and the Pixel 9. So I had a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, a Snapdragon Elite, another Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, and a Tensor. And all of those going to a tablet on a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. And I did have some funkiness. The Xiaomi, which one was it? Xiaomi 13 Ultra, excuse me. The Xiaomi 13 Ultra did not like this update. It kept getting these weird like camera sensor changes where it would switch from the ultra wide to the main camera, like it was doing that auto hardware switch. You'll sometimes see like based on proximity. So I couldn't use my 13 Ultra, but the Xiaomi 14 did work. So what we're waiting for is to see if we'll eventually get Dimensity support, because my Vivos do not have access. They are currently on the Blackmagic Camera 1.5 version, but we're hoping that they'll get updated soon too, and you'll get the 2.0 update. Just completely unrelated, Grid Legends just got updated, and if you play Grid Legends, it now supports Dimensity, and the frame rates are incredible. The Dimensity GPU is crushing right now. I think the game looks and plays better on Dimensity than it does on the Snapdragon 8 Elite. It's just so frustrating, especially here in the United States, that we don't get these kinds of options. I digress. Check out the Blackmagic camera. It's free. So you have a free app with no limits, no ads, no watermarking. You can record up to the highest limits of what your phone camera sensor and phone chip can support. And you now have an extremely high quality free platform that does fantastic multi-camera sync. I had 4 phones recording video, but all I had to do was push record on my tablet, and then all 4 started recording at the same time, and then I dumped all those files in DaVinci Resolve, Blackmagic's excellent video editing software. This podcast not sponsored by Blackmagic. And all of those clips lined up within a few frames of each other. You can actually see in my video, the audio sync is just a touch off because I was pulling audio from my mic, and that's on me. When I was doing that audio sync, I think I sunk to the wrong audio track, and it looked fine in my preview, and then I rendered it, uploaded it, published it, and like, oh, you know what? I'm actually a couple frames off there. But the audio clips, the video clips themselves line up phenomenally well. Highly recommend. Highly recommend. Just try it, play with it, and you'll see what an actual pro video app should look like on your phone. We can kind of run through these. We've got some stuff that's going out on the Patreon. I did a video talking about the Synology B Station, but instead of just doing a nuts and bolts review, I really wanted to ask some questions, and I got some great replies that I think I might turn into another video. Is it time to get your family off the cloud? Because I think a lot of our family and friends are just tired of paying for more and more subscriptions. I think cloud storage is really not as great a value as we thought it might be. And unfortunately, instead of just making the act of syncing and storing content online better, or maybe giving us more storage, instead, all of these companies are trying to force AI tools. You're going to pay more for AI, and none of us are really using that stuff. Plus, we've got another story in the news block that's going to be about breaking encryption on your cloud storage. So when you put your when you put your files on someone else's hard drive, that means you're kind of letting anyone with access to that server see what's on that server. So that's not great. Instead, we can put a bunch of hard drives in a little box and connect that to our own home network and control and protect and keep private the kind of stuff that we would want to protect and keep private. So that video is on the Patreon. I also have this in early access. My new favorite game controller has been out for a couple months now. The GameSir Cyclone 2. This is a phenomenal controller, so I was just happy to share some thoughts on that. And then wrapping it up with another patron pregunta. Oh, whoops, I misspelled pregunta. I speak the Spanish real well. Oh, I'm such a dork. All right, but I got a question from Lel on the Discord. What are your thoughts on the value of adding more and more compute power to phones each year? I guess the question is, do you think a phone that trades raw horsepower for more innovative features elsewhere would be preferable to what we have right now? And I need to go fix the title of that post because I write fast and I don't copy check like I should because I don't have an editor to work with. Um, but I wrote probably very poorly. I wrote about 2,300 words on the idea of this iterative cycle of putting more and more compute power in phones every year. And again, it was just a really great question to spend some time with, even though I can't spell to save my life. So that you can catch on the Patreon, the patron Pegunta. Oh God, I'm such a dork. Um, so you should give that a read. The actual content of the article is better than my spelling in the title of the editorial. So, if you would like a question featured on the Patreon, you can hit me up on the Patreon. You can hit me up in the Discord, or just reach out to me on social media. But it'll be for patrons by patrons. That's how we like to organize a lot of those weekly questions. Okay, I'm gonna take a sip of coffee, but everything we're gonna be talking about, all of the show notes, all of my articles and videos, and then all of the articles that we're gonna be talking about this week will be available on somegadgetguy.com. There's a blog post that goes up every week, along with the audio replay, which for the last couple weeks has been significantly higher quality audio than the video, but hopefully we hold through. So that would be nice. All right, let me take a drink of coffee and we'll move on. Yes, Christopher Mendez, Patreon pregunta. So like Patreon asks, like yeah, that's kind of the point. Uh, if you've noticed, I've not been spending a lot of time on chat and public social media because it's super toxic and I hate it. So a lot of people will leave just really dumb comments on YouTube videos, and I've kind of gotten tired of trying to sift through to find like the real good kernels of conversation. But then someone on the Patreon will ask just a really thoughtful question. You're like, hey, you know what? Yeah, that's what I want to talk about. Wow, Christopher, taking it back. Wait a minute, didn't you used to work at Pocket Now? Anyone else want to help Christopher? Because I really feel like we need to get on with the show. To answer your question, yes, I used to be on Pocket Now. That was a thing. Makes me really sad to see how Pocket Now has basically been completely shuttered. So, got to start it off whenever there's something that's kind of a little meaty in the world of tech and politics. This is something we need to keep our eyes on, and I think it's part of a growing concern, a trend that we likely don't want to see play out. This is coming, by the way, the Washington Post. It was funny is it was shared all over Mastodon through an archive.org link. But again, we just want to see how this might play out. Because I have the feeling that in this chat, a lot of people will probably not like the direction this is going. So screen sharing here, UK orders Apple to let it spy on users' encrypted accounts. Security officials in the United Kingdom have demanded that Apple create a back door, allowing them to retrieve all the content any Apple user worldwide has uploaded to the cloud. People familiar with the matter told the Washington Post. The British government's undisclosed order, issued last month, requires blanket capability to view fully encrypted material, not merely assistance in cracking a specific account, and has no known precedent in major democracies. Its application would mark a significant defeat for tech companies in their decades-long battle to avoid being wielded as government tools against their users, the People said, speaking under the condition of anonymity to discuss legally and politically sensitive issues. This next paragraph is important, and then I'll save the rest of the article. You guys can read it on your own. Rather than break the security promises it made to its users everywhere, Apple is likely to stop offering encrypted storage in the UK, the People said. Yet that concession would not fulfill the UK demand for backdoor access to the service in other countries, including the United States. So to appease the UK, we're playing this game of lobster potting in the UK, and also of over requesting to then hopefully get some traction or some movement on this direction. So, what I would imagine how this might play out is the UK says, you've got to create this totally open portal that we can get into any device, any account, any cloud storage, any server side, anything. And Apple's going to say, well, that's horrific and it completely destroys the security of our devices. There is no way to create a backdoor that can't be exploited by bad actors, even if the government of the UK were perfectly honorable in all of their intentions. As soon as you create a backdoor, it's going to be exploited. So, as we've already been complying with issues like CSAM, if something is uploaded to our servers, we're already doing these kind of perfunctory checks on the content that live on our data centers. So why don't we create just an open portal to that? So if it's cloud storage, you can get into that and you can see what people have uploaded or backed up to our servers more easily. And it's still terrible. Like, that's still really bad to have any kind of government access or intrusion on the private content of people's accounts. That's why we're supposed to have like laws and protections against unreasonable search and seizure here in the United States. But if you're in the United States and someone in the UK wants to see what's on your iCloud, it seems very likely that this is the relationship Apple and the UK are going to have. So we need to be aware and we need to keep up with the ongoing discussion around this. Throughout the EU and especially the UK, we see this really tumultuous conversation about things like encryption. In the EU, we have a number of politicians that are hell-bent on trying to destroy encryption for consumer computing platforms, but then we'll see a number of courts that are very staunch supporters of encryption, protecting the security, user privacy mandates that are being enforced throughout the EU. There's this constant tug of war between different factions of different countries' governments trying to see who can either enshrine encryption protections or destroy encryption protections. So we need to definitely catch if Apple rolls over for the UK. As we were just saying, hey, maybe it's time to get off the cloud. Well, if Apple falls and iCloud is basically made totally wide open, that would be a really scary thing for the most popular and profitable platform of user hardware and software and services. Everything that goes across your iCloud account, how people tend to underbuy the storage they really need and then rely on cloud storage and backup to kind of fill in the gaps because we're not just allowed to put a new memory card in our phones anymore. All of that gets real bad. So, from Christopher, if Apple complied and I had an iPhone, Scotland Yard would be able to see my iCloud photos and emails and stuff, even if I'm a Mexican living in Mexico at will. That's basically it. Yes, that's what the UK government is demanding of Apple, is that it's not just UK citizens. It would be global. Anyone that they decided they wanted to take a peek at, they would be demanding Apple give them access. Kapakash, the government wants to spy on you because terrorists. Yeah, that's a ticket. From Geet Madden, why would they need that when malware like Pegasus exists? This is odd to my conspiracy options. So yeah, the problem is, I think governments have really been tired of playing this cat and mouse game. Because you think, like device security gets better, and so then their tools to crack the devices have to get better. And Pegasus is currently a feasible option today, but they're not just looking at today. What they want is unencumbered access, which would just be cheaper for them to employ and implement, and that it will just always be allowed. And so they're trying to nudge this ball down the field at a time when consumers have never been more exhausted by tech conversations anyway. Think about your family and friends. How many of them really want to sit at the dining room table and say, hey, let's talk about your security and what does encryption mean? And watch their eyes just like roll into the back of their skull. They're really not trying to be this into the conversation. So it's the right time for politicians again to start pushing this anti-encryption narrative that we've been dealing with since the earliest days of DOS. Should consumers be allowed to lock and protect their content away from the spying eyes of the government? And we're still playing that game today. And unfortunately, we're playing that game where a lot of the protections we have are just built on other legal precedents. We don't have a lot of outright laws supporting consumer privacy and consumer protection, consumer security issues. And think about the current elected officials in a lot of countries, they're not respecting legal precedent. They're kind of just doing whatever they want, and then they'll wait to get sued, but they're doing it first. Well, we have a legal precedent that says you shouldn't be allowed to just like open up my device and search on it. All right, sue me. There's no law that says I can't. There needs to be an explicit law. Yeah, but in court cases, we set this precedent that said that this was protected based on this other stuff. Yeah, but I don't see a law. It's like so flippin' childish, but that's what passes for government right now. That's unfortunately what Americans voted for too. Sorry, let me get back to some of these comments here. Simon says, Hypno, the government could just ask NGN papers to use their portal into people's phones, as that doesn't seem to be prosecuted. Yeah, I guess, maybe. I don't know. Tangential Tesseract. The lesson is, even if you truly believe you can trust companies E with your data and your government won't force them to share, someday your government may change, and that government may not be one you want having access to your data. It's like a things evolve over time kind of comment. Spot on. I'm way behind. You guys are moving on this chat pretty quick. Goat V8, another reason to add to the list of why people should not depend on cloud storage. Absolutely agree. And also, it's just really not that much more convenient. But I feel like teaching your family how to use a network attached hard drive, and if we could just put a new memory card in their phones, would solve the vast majority of use cases where people are like, oh, I need to back up some more stuff to the cloud. Jojo the Techie, I'm sure Apple will hold their ground and say, no, our users are more important to us than selling phones in the EU, and we'll all be safe. Oops, I'm doing the sarcasm again. So, to be fair, technically, the UK is not a part of the EU. Brexit joke. I hope that wasn't too soon. Yeah, Christopher, great. Now I not only have to worry about the Mexican government, but also foreign governments nonsense. But dude, welcome to the new era of the international tech economy, because that information, that data, and basically all private companies are going to glom on to this kind of strategy too. Because just imagine an unencumbered pipe to everything you do on your phone and computer. And think about the market of monetizing user data that we have today. And as soon as you crumble encryption from some kind of like privacy standpoint at the government level, imagine the consumerism. Imagine the impact on insurance. Now I know everything your phone knows, and I know about all of your driving habits. Your phone is linked to your car, and now your car and your phone are narking on you. So now you don't even have to do anything funky to get that data to an insurance company, and they can just raise your rates arbitrarily with no way for you to contest the outcome on that. All these people that keep kicking back like, oh, if you've got nothing to hide and privacy's dead anyway, haven't had to really pay attention to things like healthcare costs. What happens to your health insurance premiums here in the United States when those companies can get access to everything you do on your phone? We see that you're using these fast food apps. So you're not taking care of yourself. We need to raise your premiums. We need to raise your rates. You're eating too much Wendy's. It's on your phone. I love it. I hate it so much because while I would love to kind of zero this in and say, ooh, Apple, be concerned about Apple, we got to move on to our next story here where if you're on a Google powered device, you might have noticed a new app pop up. Something you didn't install yourself, but it might be on your phone as I'm telling you about it right now on this podcast, watching and listening and looking at the things that are on your phone screen. And it is actually kind of scary. I'm doing spooky as a joke, but this is what passes for disclosure from Google right now. There is on the developers.google.com blog, there is a post called Google System APK Transparency, which I'm sure lots of people search for, that phrase, Google System APK Transparency. As part of Google's continuous investment in transparency of its products, we are adding transparency to two new Google System APKs, the Android System Safety Core and Android System Key Verifier. These APKs power the sensitive content warnings and cryptographic key verification feature in Google Messages. The transparency log we published to verify the claims that we make with regards to these APKs. And so then you go down to what is the Android System Safety Core is an Android system component that provides privacy preserving on-device user protection infrastructure for apps. Code from this APK is currently signed with the following key described by this certificate, and then you see the certificate is a random string of letters and numbers and capitals and icons so that you can verify that this was, an earnestly installed app on your phone. So then you have to click on one of these links, Android System Safety Core. And it takes you to the Google Play Store where you can install this app on more devices. And what's new? Well, it's the initial launch. But what is the Android System Safety Core? There's no information on what this app does. So then I go back to the Google post and I guess I'll look at this other link that says sensitive content warnings. So it takes me to yet a different Google security blog published in October of last year. And what it describes is a process where if you're in Google Messages, a new app installed on your phone for you, but a new separate app is going to start using the machine learning components on your phone, like the little MPUs built into our SoCs, to go through your Google Messages, and it will blur anything that might look like sensitive content, which right now probably almost exclusively means some kind of adult fare. So a lot of people who are already not positive on that kind of content are likely just kind of nodding along like, hey, that's fine. Hey, maybe this will help me just kind of put a little bit of a speed bump if kids are sharing objectionable adult material with each other. Just they'll know that something's up. They'll see the blur and then they'll like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't open that image. Sure. But that means that there is a component you did not install on your phone that is actively looking and trying to figure out what is being shown on your phone screen. Now, I will point out that in the best possible way, as we're talking about privacy and security, I do believe Google is using this app in an on-device way. So this is different than how Apple was going to have your phone scan for abuse materials and then it would narc on you. It would send that information up to Apple and then Apple could send that information out to law enforcement. I'm going to take Google at their word that an AI or more fairly, a machine learning component on your phone is keeping your little bucket of data on the phone and it's doing all that work for you and it'll just blur on the device. But how many of us, and in this chat, I'm earnestly asking in this chat, how many of us feel that once Google starts cataloging, an app on your phone that Google installed for you starts cataloging the kinds of content you get in messages, that at some point won't become available to some other part of the system that then can be referenced through some kind of data connection and go up to a Google server? I am not confident that this stays on device, perfectly contained in your bucket of data. I feel it wouldn't take much to compromise that relationship. And then as soon as your phone is reporting logs, is sending up information, is interacting online, that whatever information did pop up on your phone screen could then be referenced or cataloged or just consumed in some other fashion by some other entity. I am not thrilled with this. To me, this is yet another step in Google delivering a service that they already blocked from third-party suppliers. Just a little bit of a tangent here, a little trip down memory lane. When the Galaxy S5 came out, I had a Galaxy S5 unit. I think I got it from AT&T. So my AT&T rep hooked me up with this phone. I really wanted to kind of get a bit of a different perspective on it. I really wasn't super positive on the S5, but I put my wife's SIM card in the S5 and I let her tool around with it. But just to be safe, at the same time, I was also testing a whole series at the time. We had a whole bunch of these different parental control apps that would dig kind of deep into the phone, but would also give you other capabilities on the phone. Like you could track the phone more readily, it would tie into map data, you get a very clear snapshot of where the phone was connected to cell networks versus Wi-Fi networks. You could do really cheeky things, like say your phone was lost, you could lock the phone remotely and then put up like custom text. So literally a week into her using this Galaxy S5, she set it down at a Costco. She was like looking at clothes at Costco and she set it down and she walked around the table and then walked back to where she was and the phone was gone. Like literally a minute of just out of her. So she panics. She's freaked out. So she immediately drives home because she doesn't have a phone. She can't contact me. She immediately drives home, tells me what happened, and I fire up the parental control software. And like, not only can I see where this phone is going, I can also set up a new tool that every time someone tries to log into the phone, it'll take a photo of the person trying to log in. So I know what this woman looks like. I know where she lives. I can see as she's walking the phone around, and I start putting messages up on the phone screen like, hey, we don't want to, contact law enforcement. Can we just meet up and have you return the phone? And we get no reply. And then we see yet another camera snapshot of her face. So I drive out to North Hollywood Police Department and I tell them like, hey, this woman stole our phone. And they immediately start like grilling me. How do you have pictures of her? You're invading her privacy. What? How did you get this photo of her? And you're like, she's using this phone. I have access to the phone. And so, so eventually we send a message saying like, hey, we're going to contact the police because you have our property. And I can literally see in the phone map where she walks out to the curb, and I'm assuming she threw the phone away in like a dumpster. I never did get that phone back, but at one point I'm like, hey, I'm just going to go and confront this person. And the North Hollywood police were like, we don't think that's a good idea. No. We've got a squad car. We'll send someone along with you. But then like they stopped me from actually going up to the house. Like they prevented me from trying to recover the property. They wouldn't talk to her at all. So again, it was totally useless. It was such a long time ago. But eventually Google built a bunch of stuff into Android that broke all of those apps. And I don't necessarily disagree with that idea because those apps could be used to compromise privacy. There are holes in the system. Another bad actor could have gotten into that phone at some point if the app hadn't been properly maintained or supported. But Google Before any of those things had issues, Google went out of their way to say, hey, we don't think that this is good for the platform. We're going to go ahead and nip this in the bud. And Android updates over time removed those abilities to kind of get in deeper into how you could control the phone remotely. Over time, we've been seeing Google try to bring some of these things back, like the Find My network for Google. A lot of that isn't as good as the tools we used to have through third-party apps and services like 10 years ago. Almost 10 years ago. Like more like 8 years ago, but still. Um no, like about 9 years ago now. Yeah, we're actually kind of getting to the 10-year mark when we had those kinds of setups. Anyway, I'm distracting myself from my own tangent here. So when I look at something like this, there's that little kernel of an idea where it's like, hey, you know what? That's not a bad idea. But the implementation of this is really bad. I fired up my OnePlus 13. It's not a Pixel. It's not a Google phone, but it's an Android phone. I fired up my OnePlus 13, and wouldn't you know it, this Android protection core thing was installed on my phone. I'm a grown-up. I have not asked Google for any help in managing sensitive photos on my device. I'm not seeking out sensitive photos. I don't have friends who text me sensitive photos, but I'm also a grown-ass man. Now, if I were setting up a phone for my daughter on her 10th birthday, she might get a basic flip phone just for better communication. She might get something not really data enabled. We'll see. She's a little young for her age. I don't know that she'll be mature enough to handle a cell phone just yet. But let's say I were setting up a device for my daughter and I wanted to just let her know I am not digging through your messages, but kids can be awful. And as they're sharing content, I'm going to install this sensitive content app. This is through Google. It lives on your phone. It's not sending information to me. It's not sending up information to the cloud. And all it's going to do is kind of loosely scan for any potential images that might be upsetting. I think that's reasonable. I have made an informed decision to manage a device in a way that I think is appropriate. I didn't have Google dump an app on my phone that immediately just started looking and cataloging at all of the photos and images on my phone. I am not happy with that distribution. Because I think if Google did this, because I think they knew, especially Google executives, if they went out and actually explained this process and said, hey, this is something that looks at all the photos in your text messages, I think they would have gotten a lot of public pushback. But instead, we get the Google security blog. 5 new protections on Google Messages to help keep you safe. Enhanced detection protects you from package delivery and job scams. Intelligent warnings alert you about potentially dangerous links. Controls to turn off messages from unknown international senders. Sensitive content warnings give you control over seeing and sending images that may contain nudity. From October of last year. And now the apps are just showing up installed on our phones today. That's not okay. I needed a much bigger splash warning. This is an app that's getting installed on your phone. Do you wish to install this app on your phone? But they didn't do that, which means to me, they know it was kind of sketch. I don't know, anyone in the chat, do we think this is sketch? Am I making a mountain out of a molehill here? I think this was the wrong way to handle something that I do believe needs to be on devices. Content protection, not a bad idea. But the implementation and distribution of this, not the way I think it should have been done. So let me take another drink of coffee here as my voice is actually kind of failing me here. And then we'll see what y'all think and if maybe I'm just off the pulse. From murder. Is this a ghost story? It is the ghost of your privacy. From Colin Murphy, waiting on the AIs and the fast food apps to tell me where I can get the weight loss drugs cheaper. And wasn't that a commercial during the Super Bowl too? Drugs and society, and you're eating unhealthy, but our drugs are good for you. I can't remember what the name of the company was, but it even had like the really tacky store label, like brown paper labels on like vials of injectable drugs. And you're like, what are we doing as a society? This is so gross. Uncle Gamer, Google's gonna look at my phone and be like, man, this dude got mad game. Okay, I guess if that's your benchmark. I really want an engineer at Google to be like, all up in my grill and stuff, is how the kids would say it. From Dagon 1, I don't know that it's going to be much better if it's, Android or some other operating system. But Dagon, that's why I never buy those Western smartphones with Google or Apple oriented software, which is just hilarious because there's someone right now shooting yet another video. The Chinese phones are going to steal all your user data. Because it's just funny that you like look in your own backyard. From Ken X, I feel they are training their AI on us like how Photoshop trains and takes content. I'd be really curious. Like, there was another report. I didn't put it in this week's show notes, but someone just recently published like captchas. When you have to like verify that you're a human. None of those stop bots now, but you still have to go through and click on pictures of fire hydrants and crosswalks. And it's basically just like a $1 trillion industry for Google, and it's wasted billions of hours of human time. And we're just sitting here doing it because we've got to get through to this website and we needed to verify that we were human. And this is just such a dystopian, this is like the dumbest dystopia. And we're just sitting here doing it. And yet again, Google wasting our time is profiting them hugely, and it's burning electricity, it's burning water, it's running data centers that don't need to be run, but we just keep doing it. I guess we just got to keep doing it because that's the world we live in today. Oh, Uncle Gamer, LOL, but for real, this is a dangerous and slippery slope. My wife is from China and she completely has the I don't do anything wrong, so who cares attitude. The initial, I mean, that's what's so frustrating about that argument is the initial pitch of that argument is truthy. I'm not doing anything bad. Why do I care if someone snoops on my stuff? But bad is a spectrum. So again, let's say you drink too much wine. You're only supposed to have there is no safe consumption limit for alcohol, right? I enjoy probably 2 bourbons a week. I really enjoy those bourbons. And I have to really measure myself because I really enjoy those bourbons. And I know if I kind of let myself go, I might be overindulging in those bourbons. But there is no safe consumption limit for alcohol. So then if my phone is reporting on me enjoying 2 bourbons with no input from me, my insurance company could say, well, you're consuming alcohol, so you're not living as healthfully as you could. That's going to impact your insurance premiums. See, that's it's always in that periphery that people immediately fall apart on that stupid argument of if you don't have anything to hide, because that's exactly the person who probably has a ton of stuff that they don't tell people about. Like, you're not telling your friends and family about like your fast food eating consumption habits and like the points you have on your McDonald's app. Like, it's maddening to me that the people who are most likely to get hurt by that argument are the people that are using that argument. I'm sorry. Oh, and Dagon is using a Vivo, so it's the correct answer. I love my Vivos. Sorry, I just got another one. Simon says, Hypno, when I think of tech companies spinning how they are totally respectful of our privacy, I think of Tim Heidecker characters BSing us. Yes, accurate. Vulgarity, good old liability shield. Oh, we're not snooping on your data, we're just snooping on your data on your device. That's how that happens. Oh, Ken X, that happened to my wife's iPhone 4. Unfortunately, there was no recovery and she had purposely not put a lock on her phone. That's really sad. Unfortunately, that hasn't gotten much better on Apple. So let's say your phone gets stolen and you want to put like a remote lock or wipe on that phone. If you're not giving Apple all of your location data and contributing to the Apple Find My Device network, I can't remember Find My or Find My Device or who uses what. They're both Find My networks. If you try to pull out of that, Apple removes all of the tools for you to remote like lock and wipe your phone. There's just no way they can help you unless you give Apple every bit of your location data. They just can't. They can't do it. They wish they could. If only they could. If only they could use the data connection that your phone is already using. And then you could just like lock that device and make it inoperable for anyone else. But unless you also just give them all the location data too, you just can't do it. It's really sad. I wish, if Apple were more clever and they had smarter engineers, then maybe they could do it. It's just really tough out there to get the good engineers who could figure out a problem like a user's phone is stolen and they don't have 100% of your location and user tracking data to send a signal to that phone saying, "Hi, I was stolen. Can you lock me and not let anyone else use me?" But there's just no way. They can't. They can't do it. Just got to give Apple everything. It's the only way to be. Uh, from Geet Madden. So the safety core thing is not open source. Why? If it is so crucial and it keeps it safe, put it in AOSP and open source it so we can see what you do with it. I don't know, Geet. That sounds incredibly too reasonable. I feel you sound like one of those commies, actually. Oh, it's our Android, not your, and it's our. Yeah, so I'll stop on that joke. It's just silly. Yeah, Colin. Anything that Google introduces now that they have become less not evil needs to be questioned. This is not a trend I like seeing Google go down. And this is like yet another one of those just irritating steps, what I feel is in the wrong direction, from how they locked apps out of storage under security pretenses with scoped storage. It wrecked device performance that we're only just now recovering from, all the way to these kinds of changes and how they manage user data on device is not a good direction. It's not playing out the way that I think they hope it will. Daniel Schwartz just cuts to the quick. I was being really cagey and cheeky about it. Daniel, yes, you've absolutely nailed it. I think Google knows most people would say no to install an app on their phone thinking it was a scam. Yes, correct. If you described what this app does, which there is no documentation on what the app does on Google Play, the place where most people would look for information on that app, already tells you everything you need to know that Google knows what they're doing is not going to be popular. But yeah, if you gave people the choice and described what the app did, most people would say no. And it's unsurprising to me that over the last couple days, this app, the 1-star ratings have skyrocketed because people are just learning about it and then saying, hey, I wonder if that app was installed on my phone because I know I didn't install that app on my phone. Son of a bee, the app is on my phone. And that is literally the feeling that I just had this morning. Like, oh, I'm going to talk about this story. I didn't actually look to check if it's on my OnePlus 13. It's totally on my OnePlus. Of course, it's on my OnePlus 13. From John Gao, how did you find out that this app has been automatically installed? I assume no media reported about this. So where did I hear about it first? It was on the Discord. Oh, do I not have the Discord up? That is bad podcasting, Juan. Bad podcast host. Where did my phone go? Oh, there we go. Way too many glowing rectangles on this desk. And again, I have to be really careful about what I pick up because I do not want to accidentally break an embargo. So let me scroll back through. So this came from Pakistan on the private Discord, and they linked directly to the APK transparency post, which was published very recently. This has just been kind of climbing through. I caught a couple posts on Mastodon, which I believe like came from Lemmy, which I don't know who actually reported on it first. So I've just been trying to take this directly to the Google commentary because I think that's the most damning indictment of this process. Is if Google knew what they were doing was going to be read as a positive step or a step in the right direction, they wouldn't have done it this way. This to me totally reads like a company that is trying to do something with user data on device, and they know that what they're about to do is unpopular. So I don't know who broke the story first, but it seems to me like it was one of those open source or FOSS or federated researchers who likely caught it from Lemmy or Reddit and then started sharing it across like Blue Sky and Mastodon. But yeah, no one has thought that this is a good idea. From Goat V8, see again, this is why I don't get why they did it this way. I don't like it, but forgive me if this is a stupid question. What would stop them from baking this into Android rather than making it a separate app? Because then we'd never really know. I don't understand why they did it this way. This makes it look as sus as possible, right? Your point seems like the better consideration. For Android 16, we're building these sensitive warnings directly into Android to make sure it's secure, that nobody can crack it. It's a part of this, whatever security enclave, the device, the information lives on your device. They made it an APK. Actually, let me check on my OnePlus 12, because I don't know if I have it. Come on, apps and app management. There's AI Core, Android System Safety Core. Android System Safety Core right here on my OnePlus 12. And then from here, on the Android System Safety Core, I can just hit uninstall. Android System Safety Core, do you want to uninstall this app? And hit OK. If this is really just contained to Google Messages, make it a part of Google Messages, and then I can't uninstall Google Messages because I'm kind of leaning on that for my RCS support. To your point, if this is such an important part of the security of the device, bake it deeper into the Android operating system so it can be even more protected and contained and encrypted and all that other stuff. It's literally just an app that goes through the Play Store that you can just uninstall like I just did here. And that to me really makes this look like it's not being done in the most appropriate way. I'm not happy. I'm gonna finish off my coffee, then I gotta switch to water. Jimmy would definitely be frustrated with me for not drinking as much water. West Easton, but why do that when they can just sell you a new device? People aren't buying new devices because we're going to talk about that Galaxy S25 in just a bit here. Oh boy, it's not looking great out there. Android system just looked. It's installed on my Pixel. Yes, it is, vulgarity. And then Daniel Schwartz, just like I just want to put it up on the screen here if you're catching the video replay. You can uninstall the app, System Safety Core. But you can't clear the storage or cache. Oh, I had not considered even looking at that. There's probably still, and again, this is another thing. I was just talking about scoped storage. I'm not allowed to go into all of the granular storage buckets for apps directly. So there's probably still a record of what that app looked through in my Google Messages that I can't get to properly delete. Holy cow, Daniel Schwartz. That just made it even a little bit worse. I'm even a little bit more frustrated than when I started talking about this story. You've done it, Daniel. You've raised my blood pressure another percentage. So check it out for yourselves. Until Google really does a better job of disclosing and talking about and referencing this, please share this information on any platform you have access to and with your family and friends. Go to your apps list and see if this has been installed on your phone and delete it. Because I don't think Google has done their due diligence in describing what this does, how it does it, and how they're going to keep our devices safe from it being exploited. Excuse me. It's ruthlessly stupid. Oh, Colin Murphy, doing the investigative journalism that I should have. The first comments I can see about Android System Safety Core are about 3 months ago in our antivirus of all places, and it sounds about right. I know one of the posts that I saw on Mastodon references they saw that app because of some kind of virus scanner on their phone. I don't remember which one. I do apologize. But I don't know who first like reported on, hey, check this out. So Colin Murphy here saying in the R antivirus subreddit is Google is making new apps that are flagging antivirus on your phone. And Ken X just deleted it now. Ken doing the good work. So, man, I'm way behind on our schedule here. I wasn't planning on taking this much time. I've got a couple stories here that I think are important. Actually, I've got two back-to-back from Ars Technica. Let me just kind of chew through these. I don't think we need to comment on them a lot. I just think it's really frustrating to see the state of, like for example, this first story, I'm gilding this lily again. Let me just jump right in. This coming by way of Ashley Bellinger. Love her work over at Ars Technica. Torrenting from a corporate laptop doesn't feel right. Meta emails unsealed. Meta's alleged torrenting and seeding of pirated books complicates their copyright case. Newly unsealed emails allegedly provide the most damning evidence yet against Meta in a copyright case raised by book authors alleging that Meta illegally trained its AI models on pirated books. This is another one that was shared around on the Discord. I'm not going to spoil this article. See, when you've got someone like Ashley Bellinger, the way that Ars Technica puts these stories together, please go give them traffic. It's an article that is well written, incredibly well researched, is filled with links. So again, it's not just I read this one hack editorial piece. It's like an entire breakdown in history of how we got to this point. And it's why I love the work that's being done at Ars. This podcast not brought to you by Ars Technica. And I've also had terrible run-ins with other Condé Nast publications where I've been really close to maybe writing for a couple of Condé Nast publications, and then that all falls through. Ars is something a little different, and it's special, and we need to protect it like a little baby egg in a nest, because there are so few outlets that are doing this good work as consistently. I digress. Long and short of it is, Meta torrented 80 terabytes of copyrighted books. 80 terabytes to train their AI models. This wasn't Meta going out and buying 80 terabytes. How could Meta ever afford to buy that many books when they're burning hundreds of billions of dollars on the metaverse and VR? They can't afford to go and buy books to read. They took them illegally from torrents and then trained their AI models on this. And it's just the hilarity of like when new AI models come out from other countries. Like right now, our politicians are, the DeepSeek AI is a security threat. You see how they're already doing with DeepSeek what we were trying to do with TikTok. All these people who are so concerned about freeze speech are now saying you should be, the United States government should be allowed to shut down a website or a service or an AI or anything if the government just comes out and says, it's a security risk. TikTok's a security risk. We got to shut it down. Okay, well, give us the information. Let me know. Like, what's the risk? I want to protect myself. I'm a citizen of the United States, and you should give me this information, it should be public. Or we should know what the threat is. Nope, they just got to sell it. Can't, I mean, it's we talked to that Zuckerberg guy, and he said that TikTok's pretty bad. So we got to shut it down. It's a security risk. Can't give you any information because then they'd figure out how to get around our analysis, and then it'd be an even bigger risk. DeepSeek, it's Chinese. It's Chinese AI. It's probably going to be a security risk. We'll probably have to shut that down. Yep. It's a shame. Seems like it's pretty good. But again, these AIs are only functional because they've been ripping people off, ripping humans off, and then these companies have the gall to be freaked out when an AI rips off their AI. Wait a minute, we did all the work to illegally download 80 terabytes of books, and then you just stole our theft. Like, this is madness. This is the dumbest dystopia we could be living in right now. Please read this article. Ashley Bellinger put together just a banger of an article here, and it is so well put together. But again, the long and short of it, Meta stole 80 terabytes of books, didn't even pay for the books, and now they're trying to act like, well, but I mean, it's information that's out in the public. I mean, you can't say that it's like a problem. What we did was totally legit. I mean, the judge will probably see it our way. I'm going to skip. I had a story about COVID. Please just keep getting your COVID vaccinations. I'll keep the link in the show notes, but please read that study. If you've recently gotten COVID, with new strains of COVID coming out, the effectiveness in maintaining a defense against COVID plummets rapidly over 6 months. And so once you get out to around a year, if you've had COVID in the past, it is very likely you can get COVID again. Your body doesn't know what to do with new mutations and strains of COVID. And this is also why we need to be maintaining a good system and network of vaccinations and adapting to this disease. It is more squirrely than the flu. And the flu is pretty brutal. The flu is really bad. People say, oh, it's just like a case of the flu. The flu kills lots of people every year, and COVID is even more adaptable than the flu. And as someone who only just got COVID for the first time last summer, with an up-to-date set of vaccinations, that laid me on my ass. It was real bad. I am very confident that if I had gotten COVID before the vaccines had come out, it probably would have killed me. So don't do that. Like, don't take the risk. Don't play a game with it. Like, take care of your family, and don't trust that just because you've had it in the past doesn't mean you won't get it again. And with every subsequent reinfection of COVID, greatly increases the likelihood of long COVID. And you don't want that. You really don't. So, moving on. We talked about, I think it was last week. My brain is such a mess. It was over the last 2 weeks. We talked. There was a report from Mark Gurman that Apple was killing their AR glasses, and I was a little gleeful in talking about that, because Apple has gotten almost 13 years of hype on glasses, that only Apple could do glasses right, and only Apple could save VR, and only Apple. Don't buy a heads-up display. Don't buy cinema glasses from another company. Don't even look at HoloLens. The only company who's gonna do this right is Apple. And for almost 13 years, they've done nothing in this space except put out kind of a nice but not very well supported and somewhat mediocre mixed reality headset that's the most expensive thing that's ever been brought to consumers in this space. So we talked about where Apple was giving up on AR glasses. Now Mark Gurman has come out to clarify that Apple isn't giving up on AR. I know we're all really worried about this, but don't worry. Don't worry. Apple is still gonna make some AR glasses, but I have to point out how hacky this write-up is from 9 to 5 Mac. I don't like doing this. I don't like commenting on like the article. Like, I'm not trying to start internet beef with 9 to 5 Mac. Like, really, seriously, the last time I called out a review specifically, like, it just stirs up drama. And I'm really not trying to stir up drama. But if I don't point out this language, then I don't feel like I'm doing a good job of reporting on this. My hypothesis has been you have not had a chance to play with cool face displays because the entire tech industry is killing competition for heads-up displays, smartwatch at eye level types of experiences, because for some reason they think rich AR is gonna be the thing. It's not gonna be the thing. So this is coming from 9 to 5 Mac. Bloomberg's Mark Gurman reported that Apple had scrapped plans for an AR glasses product that would tether to your Mac for use. Quote, the company shuttered the program this week. According to people with knowledge of the move, the now canceled product would have looked like normal glasses, but include built-in displays and require a connection to a Mac, said the people who asked not to be identified because the work wasn't public. An Apple representative declined to comment, end quote. Now, this is from 9 to 5 Mac. Despite the fact that this sounds like devastating news, it actually isn't. This cancellation was just for the tethered pair of AR glasses, something like the Rayneo Air 2S glasses that I reviewed last month. Apple's pair would have been much higher quality and more expensive, I'm sure, but same idea. Nothing has been shown to the public. 13 years of bootlickers saying, don't get Google Glass. Apple's going to come out with something so much better. Don't get the Focals by North. We know Apple glasses are right around the corner. The Vuzix Z100, they've been out since 2023, but don't buy them because we know Apple's going to make an AR play. And now we get to this, and this last story was really telling. Apple started with a tethered headset, and originally that headset was going to connect to the iPhone. But then they realized if we hook this into the iPhone, it drains the iPhone battery way too fast. So then they pivoted and they tried to say, well, this will be a device that works for Mac users. But even that was insufficient, and they already had Vision Pro out in the market totally flopping. And one of the main use cases that they showed for Vision Pro was you could use one horrifically expensive computer with another really expensive computer to simulate having a bigger screen for your computer. So why would you spend $3,500 on that when you could just go and buy a really nice monitor? The use case doesn't make any sense. But the iPhone can't power that experience, a richer AR experience, without ruthlessly destroying the battery on the iPhone. Why? Because Apple still puts undersized batteries in iPhones. They put in a battery that's really just the bare minimum for the first year of use to make it through the day, so that you'll have battery anxiety, and when you get into year 2, you're going to spend more on other charging accessories and MagSafe and more docks and more chargers and more cables and more MagSafe. And then after the second year, you'll probably be frustrated enough with your phone and the battery degradation that you'll want to try and flip the phone. Or you just suffer through and you have a phone that is constantly getting topped off and recharged throughout the day. Rinse, repeat. Google and Samsung aren't doing much better, but they do at least include physically larger capacity batteries than what Apple does. So we already have this breakdown. Apple failed at a richer AR product that could have been powered by their phone because it nuked their phone battery. Then Apple pivoted and said, let's make something for the Mac, and then they scrapped that too. So sitting here right next to me is a real product you can buy. These are the Rayneo 1. The Rayneo 1 are what I'm calling now a cinema headset. This is not something you'll want to walk around with all day. Not the right kind of solution for this. But in a very sleek, lightweight pair of glasses, you got these birdbath optics, and you plug this in to a phone or a computer, and it projects a really lovely large TV screen. 1080p display just floats out in space in front of you. You can use it with any other computer. You could plug it into a camera if you had the right HDMI adapter. It is ready to go. This is a physical thing. You can buy it right now. It has no battery of its own. And now on this new one, they've built in the image smoothing and head tracking. So now all of that AR floating window stuff lives in these glasses. You don't have to use a special piece of software. You don't have to use another adapter, because before you would have to have a whole separate brain, computer brain, just to smooth out the image or to lock the image in place so that it would stay like over your shoulder and you could look away and not see it. So this is already something that exists. It's a real product you can buy. According to 9to5Mac, but don't worry, this cancellation was just for the tethered pair of AR glasses, something like the Ray Neo Air 2S glasses that I reviewed last month. Apple's pair would have been much higher quality, I'm sure, but same idea. Apple has nothing to show. How horrifically irresponsible of you to even suggest that Apple's solution would have been higher quality, because you don't know. These are like in that $400 to $500 ballpark, and they are wonderfully high quality. Like the experience that you can get out of these in just adding a larger screen, something that the Vision Pro does at $3,500, you're doing in that like $400 to $600 range here, depending on when you shop and if you get a sale, yada, 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 yada. And it's doing the basic head tracking and image smoothing that a $3,500 headset would do if you paired it with your Mac to display another large screen off your computer. This is how they keep formulating a narrative. Don't buy anything until Apple does it. So I really want to break down the timeline on this. For almost 13 years, you've been told not to get any kind of face display because eventually Apple just scrapped a pair of AR glasses that could not work with the iPhone because they drained the battery too quickly. I really need that to sink in. The glasses were originally built for the iPhone, and they scrapped that idea because it killed the iPhone battery. So if you have a self-contained AR headset, how do you power that? You use a little mobile ARM chip. So wouldn't you use a chip similar to what goes into an iPhone? Well then, how do you build a battery into those glasses? Can you put a battery as big as the iPhone battery in a pair of glasses? No, you can't. And when we look at what the experience, the comparative experience is for something like Meta's still not yet a dev kit AR glasses, they're basically just a shrunk version of HoloLens. They're not anything special. It's like if we took all of the advancements that we started with HoloLens 9 years ago and tech just iterated for 9 years, you'd eventually get to Orion. Isn't it Meta Orion? Whatever they're called. The Meta AR glasses. And those things can run for like maybe 2 hours. Is that an all-day wearable device to you? Rich AR with about 2 hours of screen time. Go back to when your phone could only do a couple hours of screen on time. Is that something you're really going to want to use? Not really. No, that's stupid. So how long do you think it's going to take to make a standalone pair of AR glasses powered by an Apple SoC that can do rich AR independently, all on its own, but also still be a sleek pair of frames? how big is the battery gonna be on that? So, of course, the only way forward is to do a tethered headset, something that uses the compute power and processing of a much bigger brain in a phone with a huge battery and then just sends the visuals up to eye level. That's the only way forward, because the technology to do what Apple is describing has not realized or manifested in almost 13 years of bootlickers hyping Apple glasses. 13 years. And I am very skeptical that we'll see a legit consumer facing, accessible product make it into people's hands in something that they will actually want to use and wear all day in the next 5 years. SoCs need to get an order of magnitude more powerful and more power efficient. Battery tech needs to significantly improve to make even higher capacity batteries that you wear on your face, but also in tiny, slim frames that are durable enough to not explode on your face. 5 years? Even that's kind of wishful thinking. But what we can do today, and we can do brilliantly well, is just move a smartwatch experience up to eye level. So I've got my Evan Realities, I've got my, I've got my Frame by Brilliant, that's a little periscope. I've got the Z100s, some sunglasses from Vuzix. These things are really nice, and they're still just a dev kit too, but that's a dev kit at $500 as opposed to a $10,000 meta dev kit. And when I want something immersive and more entertainment based, I can turn to my N-Reels or X-Reels or Rokids or TCLs or Ray Neos, and I can put a display on my face. And all of these things are practical and real and you can use today. Or just keep waiting. Maybe when you've waited for 20 years and not played with anything fun or new, then maybe Apple will finally give you something that all the rest of us have been enjoying for years now. Maybe. It could happen. It probably won't happen. It's ridiculous. Let me take a drink of water. Sorry, I went on that a bit longer than I wanted to. This media narrative is so galling, and I promise you, you've been missing out. Take a couple $100 and buy a cinema pair of glasses, and they are so much fun. Oh, but it doesn't do all the Terminator Vision rich AR. There's nothing there. How many developers are working on Vision Pro? Apple's mixed reality headset is a big fail. There are no apps. So just use the apps you already have on your phones and tablets and laptops and computers, but enjoy them floating out in space. The next time you're on a flight, think about how nice it would be to play your Nintendo Switch or your Steam Deck on a giant private TV screen where you don't have to like roll into a ball and look down at the screen, and you can just kick back with the little bit of reclining that that seat gives you and experience a much higher quality vision of that game floating out in space in front of you for a couple $100. Because Vision Pro will not last that flight, but a Nintendo Switch paired with a pair of glasses, much easier to deal with and will last a lot longer. Drink some water here. One sec. Oh, DC. Hey, I appreciate that. I always get a little anxious whenever I talk about my personal health issues, but DC says, Juan, thanks for the COVID vaccination and flu bit. ER doctor here, and you're on point. Well, and also thank you for letting me know that I'm not like way off the pulse. Like I said, I am going to link that article, and the study is linked in that article, and read the study too. And it's kind of scary out there. How we handle disease and how we look out for each other, I don't think we're doing a great job. And I think things could be better there. From Simon says Hypno beat me to the punch. Just wait till the mythical release finally happens. Ignore all other options. Nothing can exist except Apple because Apple has best SEO and then our articles make more money. See, again, if I write an article about Evan realities, no one's searching for that. No one knows about it. There's not a $1 billion marketing campaign, so you don't get to hear about it because other tech reviewers won't make as much money on a Vuzix Z100. Are you searching for the Vuzix Z100? No, because you probably didn't know they existed. But Vuzix doesn't have $3 billion to put together a global marketing campaign to at least be made so people can be made aware of the product. And that's what we techies are supposed to be doing. A tech reviewer shouldn't just be into the marketing hype. We should actually be educating our audiences. And that's one of the reasons why I left Pocket Now. And Pocket Now doesn't exist anymore. So I've digressed yet again. Cedric, you should absolutely play with some. I definitely want a pair of cinema glasses. Daniel Schwartz, those cinema glasses look really nice. The new X Reels are really trick though, just for including the head tracking powered on the glasses. So just the power that goes over the USB cable, you can lock a video in place and then look away and you don't see the video and then you look back and there's the video and it's so smooth. It's really good. I mean, just not having to carry around one extra lump to do that location processing, awesome. Just awesome what we've done in 3 generations of glasses, from the N Reels to the X Reels to the X Reel 1, is kind of brilliant. Vulgarity, quote, Apple wins by doing absolutely nothing. Oh, don't worry, you can't buy Apple glasses, but Apple hasn't released anything, and I'm sure their nothing is better than the thing you can really buy today. That's literally what he's saying in this article. It is better for you to buy nothing than to buy something you can really use today. And they've been saying that for 13 years. And if you've listened to any of it, or you've held off on trying something, you buy a pair of glasses, and then if you don't like them, you return them to Amazon. But you just literally have not even tried the experience, all because these people are making stuff up so that they get more clicks on Apple-related content and articles and videos. I have a whole breakdown on this industry. The entire Apple hype industry is based on nothing. Apple has shown nothing about glasses. And yet I'm still in an article in the year 2025, 13 years after we got our first look at a promo teaser of Google Glass. I'm sure Apple's pair would have been much higher quality, but the same idea. And you have nothing to base that on. It's so great. Kapakash, forget 4K. Apple's going to deliver 16K quality. And see, Nick, this is what I'm talking about. Apple just doesn't get it. They should lean into glasses as an accessory, not a standalone device. And Nick, my response to that is, right now, I'm pretty confident Apple engineers can't make this better than what's already out there. When I pick up the Evan Realities or the Vuzix Z100, this is a really polished waveguide optic, super lightweight, totally capable of wearing all day and giving me a smartwatch experience up at eye level. This hardware is wonderfully refined. This is a consumer-facing product that is ready for consumers. When I pick up the Z100, Vuzix has been making industrial headsets since Google Glass came out. They have that 10 years of only focusing on warehouse workers and dock workers and law enforcement and putting information up at eye level. So when I pick up these Vuzix, these are really nice sunglasses that are incredibly light. They wear all day. And then I get this wonderful image that projects out in space in front of me, and it pairs with my phone, and I get notifications and turn-by-turn navigation and all this heads-up data. Apple doesn't live in this space. Apple's dabbling with something that they feel maybe could be the potential future successor to the success they had with the iPhone. But they're not committed. They're not here and iterating and delivering products that people are actually using and then making the products better. Apple can't just walk into this space now. Look at every single time Apple has tried to really just march into a new territory since the Apple Watch, their biggest success has been making their own chips. Apple Silicon. That's it. Nothing else has really hit like Apple Silicon. And before that, it's like iPhones and iPads. Glasses ain't gonna be it for Apple because they don't have the actual real world user experiences to make the products better. And how do I know that that's true? Is because any company that had really been iterating in this space would never have released the Vision Pro. When I saw the Vision Pro, I criticized it, and I had a whole bunch of other tech reviewers who make tons of money putting Apple in the titles of their articles and their videos tell me how I was just being a hater, or I'm not really much of a futurist, or how could you not appreciate what Apple's doing in this space. Apple didn't make a better mixed reality headset. They made a mixed reality headset with better screens, but then degraded the quality of those OLEDs. And then they put a ridiculous soap on a rope battery on it. And then they went out of their way to besmirch a core use of VR like gaming. There was no success built into Vision Pro. I'm not saying this today like hindsight 2020. I was saying that at the launch of Vision Pro because I'm kind of a genius prognosticator. And we're still glomming onto Apple like, oh, they're the only ones that can do the VR and the AR right. They failed for 13 years. What are we doing? Vulgarity, again, kind of just beating me to the punch. Man, these innovators really seem to suck at innovation. Call it right after Apple putting the no into innovation. From Malik, snark and idiocratic tone. But Juan, it's not Apple, it's not innovation. Oh, Geet, I'm really sad to hear that. So again, my problem isn't with the industry. I want the industry to succeed. I just don't think Apple's contributing much to the success of this industry. Sorry, this is Geet's comment. I made work buy a Vision Pro to test out CAD apps, and a year later, there are no apps. And when I got to go hands-on with HoloLens, it was wildly ahead of its time. And it was an experience that really couldn't deliver on the current state of like mobile compute power. But like the nuts and bolts and the mechanics of it were really on point. And especially as we got into HoloLens 2, which still has a 5-year lead on Apple's mixed reality headset. Little things like the gestures and the finger controls. As soon as you got to see that game where you kind of scan the room and then alien bugs would crawl out of the walls and you'd sit there and do these little like finger taps to shoot these blasters, and it's tracking your hands, and it is a limited window view, but Meta's headset's going to be a limited window view. And Apple's AR headset would have been a limited window view because it's really hard to do immersive where you can really see the world. And that's why Vision Pro is such a compromised product, is because it's not AR. It's mixed reality. It's screens, it's not an actual view of the world around you. When I wear a heads-up display, I see the whole real world, and occasionally information is just presented out in space in front of me in the real world. It's augmenting my reality. It's not virtualizing my reality. So when we started playing with like HoloLens and stuff, and we started seeing Apple doing VR apps through the iPhone, and then it started doing like AR apps where you could like hold your phone and see through the phone camera, and you could see something like painted on the table. They were showing games that like, oh, what if we had like a Minecraft AR game and you could build stuff and it's really on your table and it tracks your location and all this cool stuff. We really thought, oh, we're right on the precipice. We're right there. AR is going to be a real thing. But a decade later, we've got nothing. And so it really makes me sad because Vision Pro was a dev kit. It should never have been presented as like the future of computing or consumers should really try this. It was just a really, really expensive dev kit, kind of like HoloLens was a really expensive dev kit. So it kind of hurts my soul to know that like even Apple entering this space encouraged no development of practical location and three-dimensional aware software modeling. CAD to me is like one of the first things you even think of Tony Stark. Let me build a cool Iron Man suit. I'm gonna move these things around in space and like blow up the thing, and I can pull all the pieces back together and look, and I'm gonna put red and gold, and it's gonna be a suit. I can fly and shoot the bad guys. Like we think of AR immediately in things like mechanical design. Every time we see like HoloLens, one of the first things you see is like, hey, if you need to model some type of equipment or machinery, you could float it out in space, literally in the car engine that you're working on. And you could fabricate that piece directly built on a model that you visually saw fit into your engine cavity. But it's not here. Oh, Jojo the Techie, you would definitely, you should get on board. And I'd love, and actually Jojo, let me put this out here. So Jojo writes, I want to try and review smart glasses next. Super curious about those that Juan has. Um, so the thing that I would love to hear, I do not wear glasses for vision correction. But now, every time I leave the house, I'm walking around with the Halliday, the Vuzix, or the Evan Realities. And really, the only thing that's kind of making my decision on which glasses I pick up are whether or not I need sunglasses. So, like, if I know I'm gonna drive and then spend a lot of time in like a grocery store, or like we went and saw a movie, I'm not gonna take the Vuzix because the Vuzix are just sunglasses. So I don't want to walk around indoors with sunglasses on and still have my heads up display. But I might wear the Halliday because I don't have sunglasses lenses for those. So it's okay if I'm indoors most of the day, I'll wear the Halliday. And if I'm pretty confident I'm going to be indoors, outdoors, indoors, outdoors, then that's when I wear the Evan Realities because they have the little sunglasses attachment. It's not very good, but at least I can indoors wear normal glasses, outdoors wear sunglasses, and I have the same heads up display. I would love to hear, Jojo, from your perspective, if you get your hands on these, what is it like as someone who does wear glasses all day for vision correction? Like, is this contributing to it? Is it making your life more complicated? Do you have to go from heads up display to then sunglasses if they don't have an attachment or a clip to give you sunglasses? Like, doesn't that make your life more complicated? If you don't need vision correction, this stuff is really easy to jump into because I don't have to put prescription lenses in my options. I can just go straight to wearing sunglasses like I normally do or wearing indoor glasses. And people are like, oh, Juan's wearing glasses. He's old. His eyes must be decrepit now. But actually, my vision's still pretty good. So I've just been wearing glasses indoors and I don't need them for vision correction. I need to take a quick pause here. JMan150 has subscribed at tier 1, and they've been subscribed for 21 months. And JMan has gifted a tier 1 sub to Panda Lexin and to, and Keeper MN has gifted a tier 1 sub to RJoe1440. So JMan also subscribed, gifting a sub, Kepper MN gifting a sub. I'm blown away. Thank you so much. That is incredibly generous of both of you. And again, I appreciate folks sticking with the channel, sticking with all the teething pains that we've had with audio over the last couple of weeks. And the two of you together, because I saw them at the same time, get an a cappella fanfare of glory. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And you are directly helping and contributing to keeping the lights on here in the Gadget Lab. Tangential Tesseract. I just shattered one of my own biases. It seems like prescription mixed reality glasses are really a thing now to see if they can do my crazy strong prescription. So it's not an equal situation across all companies. So like if you're looking at cinema glasses, a lot of them need some kind of lens insert, and some companies do it better than others. If you're going from Rokid, I think X-Real has kind of like the longest consistent track record on making adapters for their nose, for their bridge, so that you can put lens inserts on those. But then for heads-up displays, all of those companies have some process or method of putting prescription lenses in those glasses. Even the frame, which this is another dev kit. I'm not recommending the frame as like a go out there and wear these all day, just experience it as a consumer. I would only recommend frame if you were seriously looking at like trying to experience new apps or building apps for this platform. But even they have some model or design where you can put prescription lenses in their dev kit. Give it a try. It will make the glasses more expensive, but again, the Apple mixed reality headset was $3,500, and let's see, but so with my X-Real, my Vuzix, my Evan Realities, I could buy 2 of each of those glasses and still be cheaper than buying an Apple mixed reality headset. So I could own 6 pairs of glasses and I think still have $1,000 left over, or I could buy one Vision Pro. Or just never buy anything because Apple's gonna do something great someday, maybe. I love it. Oh, Christopher Mendez is asking if I speak Spanish, and I'm from New Mexico, where we speak a very whiny norteño Spanglish, so I do not assault people with my terrible accent. My daughter goes to a Spanish immersion school, and she gets me in trouble at Vallarta because she has a beautiful accent that's kind of like a little bit of a mix between Mexican and Argentinian Spanish. And then when I try to say something and it's like up in my nose, yala, it does not sound good. So I do not speak Spanish in public. I'll nod along and I'll contribute, and then I'll maybe give like single word answers because I'm very self-conscious about my New Mexican accent. That New Mexican Spanglish is not, it's kind of an assault to the ears. Oh, and John Gow, thank you for like contributing to this. My Evan Realities as my vision correction glasses is great. I love to hear that because that's not something I can comment on. It's genuinely not something I can contribute to that conversation. I do not wear glasses for vision correction, so I don't know if this is really gonna get in someone's way. For me, I'm wearing them just for the tech, and that is rocking my socks. But again, it's just one part of the conversation that I can't yet contribute to. So, I did just kind of want to show this. Our podcast is going long because apparently the audio still is listenable. Again, this is coming by way of Ars Technica from Kyle Orland. And I just thought it was kind of interesting. We see they found the patent for the new Joy-Cons on the Nintendo Switch 2. And there's that little teased mouse mode. And the patent, I think, shows this off better, where you detach the Joy-Con and you have like the little analog stick and the bumpers and buttons. But I'm not sure. Someone tell me here, my hands are kind of hobbit stumpy small. And also, I'm a 44-year-old with horrifically bad psoriasis and a lot of psoriatic arthritis. So these hands not in great shape. Origami has continued to be a hobby since childhood, but now, later in life, just so that I can keep manual dexterity and paper crimping and folding seems to just help break up when these hands lock up. So I'm looking at the Joy-Cons as an old man going, oh no, oh no, no, no. So if you were to take a controller, do I have, like my Xbox controller here. Actually, you know what? The Xbox controller might even be a little big or a little chunky for this. But the patent for the Nintendo Switch 2, you detach a Joy-Con, and then there are sensors on the inside, all of the little connectors, so that you can put the Joy-Con flat on that connector side on a table and use it more like a mouse. And this patent is actually really cool because of the way that they diagram it and they show it. We can kind of see what that might look like. So I'm going to scroll down and you can see there are fingers on the top of the Joy-Con, and then a thumb can still reach the analog stick and all the buttons on the side. So like a gaming mouse, that's actually pretty cool. Like I've got a little gaming mouse and it's got a scroll wheel. I'm trying to hold up my mouse and it's connected to a cable right now. It's usually wireless because I needed to charge it. But there's a certain sort of spread and distance. Let me see if I can just disconnect this cable and not like break a whole bunch of stuff. So gaming mouse, I'm not trying to like throw two fingers up, but you know, you can see like it kind of rests into the cradle of my palm, and you can see these two buttons, and there's the little scroll wheel in between, and I've got stuff on the thumb side so I can hit little side buttons, and I'm used to using this kind of mouse, and it fits my hand, and my hand can kind of just rest on it. The side profile view of Nintendo's patent looks like a reasonable mouse style interaction, but then we know Joy-Cons really aren't that thick. So we look at the sort of profile view, or I guess the top view, what your hand would look like at the top, and we see like there is what looks like a slightly larger trigger on the Nintendo Switch 2 Joy-Cons. But then we scroll down and you see like this view where you've got your thumb on the analog stick and then these two fingers super close together on the bumper and the trigger. And I don't think I can game like that. I don't know anyone else who might be, you know, like super into gaming and stuff, but like I'm picking up my Xbox controller and that's my right click and left click. And you would have to keep your fingers super, super tight, super, super close together to do left click, right click. And then your hand would be grabbing this really slim profile thing. So my hand is in this shape with these two fingers clicking on buttons. And this looks terribly uncomfortable to game for any length of time. Like, let me move this around and slide this around on a table. Even just holding the weight of this controller up to demonstrate what my hand has to do to grip that is starting, my thumb just popped, is starting to make my hand like tight. And I'm not locking yet, but that doesn't look great to me. I love Nintendo's creativity and I love the wacky experiments that they put out there and how we can do different things with hardware, from like the N64 to the Nintendo Wii with nunchucks, and then from the Wii to the Switch with Joy-Cons. Like, this is such an innovative and fun company. They're trying to find novelty and they're trying to make us think differently about the parts and pieces that we use to play games. But I don't think this is it. This makes me really anxious if a developer says like, we want to bring this title, and now that you have mouse control, now we can bring this title to the Switch. I just really want, oh, that felt good. Oh, it just like felt like I just pulled my thumb like out of its like lock zone. Oh, that felt real good. Um, I don't think this is it for me, but it would be kind of cool if just like the Pro controller, like what if Nintendo just did a really savvy partnership with gaming keyboard and mice? So now you can prop up your Switch and play like a real lean and mean first person shooter and put it in like the 99. Do a Nintendo Battle Royale. Make it like Doom 99. And you could play on WASD and with a mouse, and you could just bring your own mouse and keyboard to the table. And if you don't have a good gaming mouse and keyboard, well, here's this solution. You can also use a Joy-Con as a mouse for your mouse view. But the second I do that, it's just really making this hurt. It's pretty rough. So I'm gonna plug this back in so I can make sure that it stays charged. Let me take a quick drink of water here. And then we can finally get to the final topic of our podcast. Who wants to talk about some Galaxy S25 nonsense? Huh? Oh, Jojo, sorry, just on accents and dialects. Jojo the Techie. To be fair, we all have very particular accents in Latin America. So New Mexico, especially when I was a kid, was known for having a really ancient dialect of Spain Spanish. And while I casually say that I'm from Albuquerque, a lot of my family is actually from much smaller areas of New Mexico. Like if you see the movie Convoy, they drive through a tiny town in New Mexico, which at the time my family lived in. In fact, my uncle Salo is one of the bystanders on the street as the convoy of trucks go through Los Lunas, New Mexico. Now, today, Los Lunas is a much bigger suburb of Albuquerque. But growing up, it was like Los Lunas, Bosque Farms. My wife's family is from Gallup, New Mexico, and linguists would go to New Mexico to study this form of Spanish that was only just starting to evolve because of greater adoption of television. So the Spanish was kind of archaic and it was localized to these little pocket towns throughout New Mexico. Remembering that like my family, they came over from Spain with Oñate, so hundreds and hundreds of years ago. I mean, hundreds of years before America was a country. So all of that kind of rooted in a very particular dialect. But as we started to get more cross pollination with other languages, we also kind of hit this kind of entrenched bias or entrenched racism. In New Mexico, many New Mexicans are very proud of their Spanish heritage, but they're not likely to claim Mexican heritage as directly because our roots are Spanish. The Spaniards came over and did horrific things to the native populations and then settled in these areas. And like I said, my family came over with Oñate. We can track members of my family back 15 generations to Spain because of the paperwork that these people kept on that kind of travel. But we didn't hold on to Mexico, the Latin American idea. So the language and the dialect was preserved from archaic, hundreds of years old Spain Spanish, and then it mixed with English. But there was this kind of dirty idea we're not Mexicans, we're Europeans. So you get this Spanglish that takes root. Because for some reason, the English is a little bit more sophisticated, but we still speak with this archaic Spanish dialect. And those meld in a way in New Mexico that I haven't seen anywhere else throughout the Southwest. Definitely doesn't happen in California with more direct influx, more traffic from Mexico. Definitely doesn't happen as readily in Arizona. And by the time you see populations kind of cresting up to Nevada and Colorado, they were much more likely to be modernized before rural New Mexico. So again, you didn't need all that history, but that's also like how I grew up learning to speak Spanglish. I find very unpleasant on the ear. I do not like the sound of my own voice when I fall into that patter. Oh, from Stevie Coleman. You're from where, Juan? Oh, snap, here in New Mexico as we speak. So again, that has changed a lot. Now the population of Albuquerque specifically and New Mexico in general has seen a lot more pollination from other areas and it doesn't hold the same. But when I was a little kid, in Los Lunas, New Mexico, that accent was very particular and it was not Spanish. It was this very brutal mix of Spanish and English that I grew up with. Yeah. It was just funny and kind of complicated. Sorry, back to the Nintendo Switch from Malik. Imagine holding your hand like that while playing something like Civilization. And I did imagine that, now that you said it, and it immediately made my hand hurt. So, so yeah, that's weird. From JGJ, what would be a better state name than New Mexico since it's not derivative of Mexico? That's a great question. See, the thing is, it is derivative of Mexico because there has not been a fresh influx of Spaniards directly to that area in hundreds of years. So it's always kind of the complicated relationship that New Mexicans have with their own history that they want to claim European, but that's 15 generations of inbreeding. If that's what you're claiming, I feel like it's a bit more of a mix. They just don't want to acknowledge, or excuse me, they didn't. For example, when I was in high school, it was kind of a big deal that I was part of a ballet folklorico. I studied with dancers from Ballet Folklorico de Mexico, with Amalia Hernandez's troupe. Uh, but the majority of performance and dance and art in New Mexico at that time was flamenco. And we had sister cities in Spain, and it was all like the celebration of that style of art form. So it was kind of out of place. And now I come here to California, and that Mexican heritage and that Mexican dance form is much more prevalent. And my daughter has seen Mexican folk dancing much more readily than flamenco. But in New Mexico, and especially when I was in college, well, yeah, I mean, you could stomp around and strut around and do that Mexican thing, but flamenco is artistic and flamenco is sexy. And that was the perception that was put on it. And I just liked the footwork better in Mexican folk dancing. Like especially good tranchete and you're digging your heels into the ground. I thought that was awesome. But flamenco was cool too, and I did a couple flamenco classes. It's just that perception. You're so much closer to Mexico and you're so much more closely related to Mexico, but you don't want to acknowledge it. And you just want to hold on to the more European roots. And it's not a great look. But I think that has changed a lot as we've kind of evolved, and that commentary, especially on the conquistadors, has changed. New Mexico is a lot more open and broad in kind of celebrating the history of the indigenous populations, at least. So you know, you grow, you learn, you live. Oh, go V8. I was born in Albuquerque. Shouts out. I love it. All right. I do want to wrap this up here. Galaxy S25. 2 weeks ago, I did kind of just a reaction commentary on the S25 launch, and not a lot has changed in my perception of those devices. Um, I'm still very disappointed in Samsung's commentary, especially as it pertains to the Ultra, because they're removing features from things like the S Pen, and I feel like it's an acknowledgement of a trend that's really hitting the entire industry. For some reason, we're holding on to very specific price tiers, but components are getting more expensive. So something like the chip that goes in your phone, if you have a Qualcomm powered phone, that chip is much more expensive this year than it was last year. So we've got to cut costs, and we're finding creative ways to kind of keep costs in line, but that often means we're finding some features are getting reduced. I've been pointing to phones like the Vivo X100 Pro. It's still one of my all-time favorite photography phones, and I really enjoy the Vivo X200 Pro, but the X200 Pro is not an upgrade for photography. It's better in some ways, but worse in others. It's kind of a side grade. You just have to pick and choose which individual features make more sense for you, and that would lean you one way or the other. But it's not a clear, this phone is better on all fronts, so I'll go with the newer one. This stuff gets complicated now. And across everything, I think we're seeing a lot of this where, oh, well, we've had to move this piece out and we're moving this piece in. Don't worry, we're giving you a bigger battery, but maybe we're reducing the camera quality because it's all just processing anyway, HDR. And I'm really upset about that. To Samsung's credit, It seems like they've kind of left the cameras mostly alone. They've kind of improved the ultra wide, which really wasn't the issue. The ultra wide is not the camera that needs the most attention or the most help. Um, they've held everything else in place basically since the Galaxy S20. So this is 5 generations of phones now where we're kind of still in the same place. I don't know about you, but that's not much exciting to me. So when we hear about those other differences and those other features and how Samsung is trying to keep prices in check, because they're also not putting Exynos chips in phones this year, that means they're paying out the nose for more Qualcomm, and they can't even sell themselves chips to make Samsung's profit margins healthier. That means all that money is leaving Samsung and going to Qualcomm and to TSMC, and that's real bad for Samsung. You would think we would see the company who spends the most on marketing in Android land try to rally more conversation around these new phones. But just like every other tech bro company right now, Samsung is falling into the trap of hyping AI. And nobody cares about AI. And a lot of the people, not most, but a lot of the people who do care about AI, they care about AI because they don't like AI. I would put myself in that bucket. I care a lot about AI because I'm really unhappy with it. And I don't like server side, and I don't like seeing data centers being built that don't need to be, consuming more electricity, putting up more pollution into the air, and guzzling water to cool those facilities. This to me is really bad, and I don't want to contribute to that kind of a market. But Samsung leaned into AI. What is the reason to buy an S25 over an S24? It does more AI, but it does more AI server side. So if you have an S24 and there are things you can't do with these software and services, you should be pissed. Because isn't it all server side anyway? If I do this photo manipulation thing, isn't that just going up to a data center? So why would I buy a more expensive phone with a more expensive chip that has fewer features in the S Pen? Why would I buy the S25 over the S24? You've shown me nothing that utilizes the increased performance of the chip in the S25. Samsung hasn't talked about that at all. Look at all of their keynote and presentation and go to their website. What can you do on an S25 that you can't do as fast on an S24? Samsung can't tell you that. I can, because I actually do test things like video rendering performance and audio podcast mixing and batch photo processing. There are reasons you might want that chip. But I also think there are a lot of people who would rather just have the remote shutter on the S Pen click than render a video 10% faster. I don't know, is anyone here in the chat? Are you concerned about rendering 4K video 10% faster, or would you rather have a hardware feature like being able to use your S Pen as a remote shutter? So I'll let the chat catch up to that, and we'll handle those comments. All other things being equal, your gaming performance is going to be within 10% in terms of FPS in graphics intense titles. Your video rendering performance is going to be within 10%. Your audio editing capabilities are going to be under 10%, I think, Galaxy to Galaxy. So what would you rather have? The Bluetooth on the S Pen, or if you render a 1 minute video, it'll take 24 seconds instead of 27 seconds. So again, you're going to make a TikTok, it's 1 minute long, and you want it to be a 4K video. That 1 minute video will take 24 seconds on your S25, and it would take 27 seconds to render on your S24. And you just tell me. You tell me, what is a feature that is better for you? That 10% increase in 4K video rendering or the S Pen? I'm gonna take a quick sip of water here. Oh man, Christopher Mendez, taking it back. I've had that feeling before. New features that could be easily added to old devices. When the Note 5 was announced, I was expecting the Note 4 to get the always on display too, but that never happened. There was a lot of those transition points too, especially where Samsung was trying to make their devices way more like the iPhone too fast. You know, like Galaxy S6, like, oh, you can't add a memory card anymore. Oh, wait, you liked that. I guess we'll bring it back for a couple more years. Doop-a-doop-a-doo. It's so frustrating. Um, JGJ, how can I care about 4K video when the storage isn't expandable? Well, that just means you're not buying enough. Just just spend more. Look at the Pixel 9 Pro XL. I mean, it's an $1,100 phone with 128 gig of storage. Just don't be poor, JGJ. If you want to shoot some 4K video, you also need to buy way more cloud. Because let's say you want to do video boost, it's going to upload to the cloud, and you need to have fast data for that. And then you'll get the cloud edited version and the raw version, so you'll have two video files taking up space on your cloud, and then they'll send a video down to your phone. So you need more storage on the phone and more storage up in the cloud, so just buy more. I'm just tired. All you people just sound like you're so broke, like all the time. Just be super rich. John Gao saying remote shutter all day long. Christopher Mendez, I'd rather have an SD card reader because a Bluetooth remote control is something that could be bought or something. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I wasn't saying there aren't other things I'd rather have on a phone. I think we'd all prefer to have practical features like storage expansion on our phones back. I was saying just specifically between the two options that Samsung is currently selling, S24 to S25, that being the defining factor. I think most people would probably lean S24, but you're not wrong. Samsung makes awesome memory cards. Isn't it a shame that we can't put awesome Samsung memory card in powerful Samsung phone? Because that would make sense to me. Christopher Mendez, I'm New Mexican. Being poor is also a part of life for us too. Okay, so I think we've caught up. So the reason why I'm going on this, don't you think, is because, and I'm not joking when I say the S25 is a flop. I put this in the title. I'm putting this in the commentary. I'm not just saying this to be a Samsung hater. I am pointing out how Samsung has ruthlessly failed in their job of marketing new devices and getting consumers excited about premium Android solutions. Yet again, another list of devices came out at the end of last year, and the most popular Android devices were phones like the Galaxy A12, like $200 and $300 Android devices grossly outsell premium tier fare, let alone ultra tier devices that cost over $1,000. Anything sub 600 is eroding, and companies are failing to promote and advertise and market reasons why consumers should spend that much money. They're marketing. In fact, right now, Google is one of the only success stories building market share on phones over like $400. The Pixel market share is improving in numerous markets where they're buying more ads. But even there, they're failing at telling customers why. All they're doing is falling for the same trap that Samsung did, where, I mean, iPhones are expensive, so here's an expensive Android. It must be the iPhone of Android. And you're not going to sustain on that. You're eventually going to fail. And the reason why we know you're eventually going to fail is because that is literally what Samsung is doing year over year. So here is Google Trends. And I want to show two search terms, Galaxy S25 and Galaxy S24. I'm purposely keeping this as simple and as broad as possible. I'm not searching for Galaxy S25 Plus. I'm not searching for Galaxy S25 Ultra. I'm searching for Galaxy S25, which will hopefully encompass more search terms under it. Someone just searching for the new Galaxy might not put Ultra or Plus on that same search. So I'm going to share this right now, and let me scroll this back up here. And if we go by the peak, so if the most, the highest searched peak for the Galaxy S24 is rated on a scale of 0 to 100, the S24 hit its peak in the week of January 14th, 2024. And then it was a steep drop off as consumers were able to get those devices. So that's why Samsung always rigs the initial commentary with people who are friendly to Samsung. This is the most profitable time is in the first month that the phone has been announced and launched, and anyone who gets their devices with regular people, the monetization on that has fallen off dramatically. So the people who make the most money on Samsung coverage make the most money in that embargo place where Samsung gets to pick who's going to make the most money. And then I'm going to scroll to the top peak of interest in search for the Galaxy S25, and it peaks at 64. Search interest from the S24 to the S25 is down about 40%, according to Google Trends. For every 10 searches we saw on the S24, we're seeing about 6 searches on the S25. And we can always see this little peak of interest in November because there are lots of holiday sales. There's Black Friday, Thanksgiving, getting new phones for Christmas. There are all these great sales and trade-in offers. And the S24 hit a search share of 45% last November. So about 15 points shy, it's about 30% lower than the search interest at the brand new launch of the S25. That is disastrous. And the thing that's going to be frustrating is for the last 5 years, we've seen sales on Samsung phones plummet and then just hover. From the peak sales point of premium tier Android phones was in 2019 through 2020. Those 2 years, we didn't know how good we had it. Snapdragon 855, headphone jacks in phones, IR blasters, rear-mounted fingerprint sensors, memory card expansion, quad DACs, higher quality audio, like all of these features. Multiple camera sensors were just becoming a thing. 4K video recording, software stabilized, LG V50, first phone to do it. F off, Apple, you were late. LG did it first. Point after point after point after point. Phones have never been more capable than they were in the window from 2019 to 2020. And that was, 2019 was peak Samsung sales for phones above $400. And then Samsung cut marketing budgets dramatically and sales fell off a cliff. And from 2020 through 2022, sales of the Galaxy S series dropped more than 40% and then have just hovered in that lower tier. No folding phone has made up the difference. No premium tier phone has made up the difference. Getting rid of the Note name has not made up the difference. We have never properly replaced the sales from the original Galaxy Note. So the last year that we had a Galaxy S and a Galaxy Note as two separate devices, Samsung has not made up the sales of losing the Note name. It hasn't happened. So I'm looking at this. And year over year over year, what are we talking about? We're talking about AI. Samsung is really trying to say, oh, AI, and consumers are so excited about AI, and AI is going to be super exciting. So I just wanted to take this even just one step further back and see what happens year over year over year. Like what kind of trends can we maybe extrapolate? And so I also included another search with Galaxy S23. And it's pretty wild. Let me screen share this now. So now the Galaxy S20, so here's the Galaxy S24 is our peak. So if the most searches were for Galaxy S24 in that January 14 to 20, that is still are now from 0 to 100%. Again, Google Trends organizes this not in any kind of traffic because they don't want you to have too much insight. They're just saying of your 3 search terms, this was the most popular at the biggest peak of time. And now that represents 100%. If we go back to the January launch for the S23, that hit 75% of the audience that the S24 hit. So going from S23 to S24, we did pretty good. We actually increased search interest from S23 to S24. I was not really expecting that. But remember how we said there was that November bump? Well, the November bump for the S23, so I go from S23 to November, hit a 60 share. Search interest in sales and holiday pricing for the Galaxy S23 is almost as high as launch interest is for the S25. 2 years later, we are seeing the same interest in holiday sales as we do for launch for a new phone. And that's real bad. I mean, even throughout 2024, search interest for the Galaxy S23 hovers surprisingly high. And I am going to be very anxious to see. I'm going to be very curious. I seriously doubt search interest for the S25 is still going to be in the like high teens, low 20s in terms of interest, where the S23 is still searching higher than some of the rumor and leak interest in the S25. Those numbers are ridiculous to me. But overall, just consistent search over these 2 years, the S23 outperforms on Google search metrics over the S24, and the S24 wildly outperforms over the S25. And when you do like state by state breakdowns, they have all these charts and graphs. You know, compared breakdown over this time period from the launch of the S23 to the launch of the S25, overwhelmingly more than half of the search interest tracked over all that time is between 55 and 60%. The S23 just took way more search interest over that time period. Now, obviously, a major factor of that is it had a whole extra year that the S25 doesn't get the benefit from. But when we look at these spikes, the spikes aren't going up. I'm kind of shocked that the spike went up between the S23 and the S24, but then the spike cratered on the S25. So consumers are not interested in looking up information on the S25. The S25 looks like it's going to be a model of phone that people are mostly getting, probably because they have an S22 that the battery just keeps melting down on them because Samsung's chip was so terrible in the S22. If you have that and you've been able to suffer this long with a Galaxy S22, get an S25. It is going to be a great battery upgrade, and almost nothing else on the phone is going to be noticeably different than the phone you had before. But consumers aren't seeking this phone out. They are not looking it up. And we haven't seen, like, sometimes you see these secondary spikes, like the phone is announced and all the embargo videos go up from all the bootlickers that just praise Samsung for being the bestest because they'll make a whole bunch of money on affiliate links. And then sometimes you'll see like another little mini spike. Like there's a great little mini spike on the S23. There isn't one on the S24. But sometimes you'll see the secondary spike as real people get their phones and are starting to put out videos like, I bought my phone and it shipped and let me unbox it and let me talk about it. And people are kind of still in that glow, that initial launch glow. I don't think we're going to see that with the S25. I think it's just going to crater. It's just going to tank. This is going to be a terrible year for the S25. And I guarantee you that Samsung PR is going to jump through some hoops and dance around and say something like, this broke sales records. And then you'll try and track what they mean, and it's like, on the second Wednesday after the announcement of the phone, pre-orders hit 10% higher units than the same period of time last year. And you're like, cool. So like for a week, pre-orders did a little bit better, but overall sales are actually lower. But you broke a sales record by manipulating this time frame for pre-orders. And we totally did that with the S23 and the S24, but those phones had legitimately more search interest going on than the S25. So I'm not just saying this because it's like I want to hate on Samsung. Unfortunately, our prosperity is inextricably tied to a company that has no vision, is potentially being run by an organization, a family organization that we would sometimes compare to mafia style business practices here in the United States. Um, this is not a good outlook if you're a fan of premium Android devices. Even if we don't like Samsung, we need Samsung to be competitive and to market appropriately. And to, unfortunately, marketing is like the first wave of consumer education in electronics is, did you see a commercial about that thing? Then you're aware it exists. And Samsung is making people aware of features on the phone that they don't want. So they're not inclined to go and buy that phone. Oh, I heard it has more AI. You know what? I'm actually not really into AI. Maybe I don't want to buy another expensive phone. Or maybe it's time to just buy an iPhone. Then I'll have the right color text messages. So John Gow, and I'm glad you brought this up because I didn't pull up these charts for the podcast, but I've been watching that data too. I'm looking at a similar Google Trends data comparison, but with iPhone search terms, iPhone 16 is also lower than iPhone 15 at launch. And what did Apple make a big play out of? What was the big new feature Apple was touting on iPhones? You saw it in T-Mobile commercials. You saw it in AT&T commercials. That's right, the AI. So why would consumers buy it? If consumers are motivated, and some of and again, not all, not most, but a significant chunk of consumers, when we track, we've talked about these stories and these studies in the past. Significant chunks of consumers are actively turned off by anything that's described as a feature relating to AI. They don't trust it, they don't like it. And then you tie a bulk of your marketing to a feature consumers are telling you they don't like. Well, why are we shocked? What benefits does the iPhone 16 bring over the iPhone 15? Oh, it's got the Apple Intelligence. But I don't want it. I guess I won't buy that phone. What benefit does the S25 bring over the S24? It's got more Samsung Bixby's in it. But I don't like the AI. I guess I won't buy it. And then this immediately rolls into, like, if you're talking to someone like me, my advice would be, if you can, like, say you're coming from an S22 or an S23, I would say, actually no, I would say stick with an S23 and you're probably fine. But like the one tangible upgrade from S20 to 21 to 22, I really do like the new telephoto sensor on the S24. That is actually a nice little perk. It's less zoom, but it's a higher quality sensor. You get better images out of it, especially if you like to take those head and shoulder portraits of your family and friends. Like, I had a pretty good time with that S24 telephoto. I had a better time with a similar telephoto on all the Pixels and on the Vivos, but Samsung finally got there too. It's a more capable sensor. It's better in mixed lighting. You can drive it in darker conditions. It's a better photography perk. But almost everything is the same going 24 to 25. So unless you're telling me you absolutely need the GPU performance of the Snapdragon 8 Elite because of the game you play that is going to leverage that compute power, you'll have Bluetooth in the S Pen, and you'll have roughly the same camera stack. You'll have almost identical screen performance. Go get yourself a deal on an S24 Ultra, because you should be able to get one for a bit cheaper than the new S25 now, right? Offer someone literally $1 more than that trade-in value. Yeah. How much is Samsung going to give you to trade in your S24 Ultra for an S25? I will beat that by $1. I don't know. I mean, again, if you don't care about the photography experience, you could go and get an S23 and have mostly the same overall experience as the S25, with a few extra perks, like there's Bluetooth in the S Pen. It's just maddening to me. This whole year, I think, is going to be just a terrible. I was so excited getting into the year, and I was still really, really critically excited about how good the Dimensity is performing. The Dimensity 9400 is just an insanely powerful chip, and if you're not into cell phone compute power, like treating your phone like a pocket computer, it's totally wasted in a phone. It should be the chip that's like in like laptops. It's so good. Put active cooling on it, it would just be a beast. But anyway, yeah, the more you keep looking up data, and like how every content creator I talk to is complaining about how their traffic is lower, they're not making as much money on their videos. Well, unfortunately, that's tying your ship to Samsung. And Samsung is just dragging us all down right now. Literally, just we're underwater. We're treading water to try and keep above and keep people interested in this stuff and have fun things to talk about. And Samsung is not getting it done. And we need Samsung to do it, but they won't. They are not interested in competing. They're only interested in cutting costs while charging people more. So that's unfortunately going to be the reality of this market until we stop talking about Samsung like they're some kind of de facto market leader. They are not leading the market. They are coasting on the popularity of their handsets and the marketing they used to do back in the years 2017 to 2019. But that ain't getting it done anymore. Okay, sorry. A couple comments here and then we got to bounce. Ron Guido. So what you're saying is people don't want to pay more and get less. Oh, funny. That's pretty good. I like that. I like that, Ron. I did mention John Gao did the search on iPhone 16 and iPhone 15. From Christopher Mendez, broke a sales record, not the sales record. Look at those press releases. I'm not joking. Like, check them out. They are so cagey about, oh, for this like 17-hour period of time, we saw more pre-orders than 3 years ago. This is a completely useless metric. It's so dumb. Simon says Hypno, asking folks to smash that like button. I do appreciate that. Again, every little bit helps. We actually had some pretty good viewership on this, which I'm glad, because I actually had functional audio for a change over the last couple of weeks. From Geet Madden, the AI race just shows how free market doesn't work. If they were to cater to the consumers, AI would be long dead. AI is solely there to cater to the investors. So much for vote with your dollar. We keep voting with our wallets. We do not want these things making our tech worse. And yet, investors still seem to think that this is the way to go. And if you have any insight into your company's moves and the popularity of these things, at some point the AI bubble is going to burst. And it's going to hurt a lot of people. So if I were you, I would try to get ahead of that trend. But instead, people are looking short term. They're looking at next fiscal quarter. Is NVIDIA going to sell more GPUs? And you're going to get wrecked. And I'm not going to feel bad. It's going to happen. There is no business model that accounts for the incredible costs of AI that will eventually make a profit and won't completely destroy the planet and the environment. There's no Sam Altman slick talking their way out of the problems of the realities of this business model, and that there is no solution that they can offer to make profits above that. It's madness. Um, from Macroy Fernandez, consumers just think AI is just software, so not so interesting, whereas older releases focused so much on camera improvements that people had some comparison. Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. Um, I feel like once we got to the Galaxy S20, though, that the smartphone camera market has largely stagnated, except for commentary on devices like Xiaomi and Vivo Ultras and Oppo Ultras. And again, that becomes a very specific kind of conversation that should really only be about 3% of the market. When I pick up one of those phones, I can tell you exactly why I reach for Vivo over a Samsung. And camera quality is a big part of that. But that's also because I care about things like sensor sizes and I don't care about things like megapixel numbers. The number of megapixels in your camera means nothing for the output of your camera. But trying to teach consumers that everything they've been taught has basically been a lie is really difficult. Let me tell you, you don't make a lot of money on a YouTube channel like that. Can confirm. From Daniel Schwartz, we talked about the Microsoft 365 family plan, and I also have an article on somegadgetguy.com where I went through my experiences trying to disable the AI in my Microsoft 365 account, which was also a really scummy move the way that Microsoft did it, not unlike what Google did with scanning all of the photos in your Messages app. And scroll this down here. And Christopher Mendez, bring S voice back. Do it. So, folks, I'm appreciative. This was a long one. We almost hit 3 hours, and I'm going to cap it before we get to 3 hours. Ba-boom. Wild stuff is happening in the news, and we've got to keep up with all of it because right now the main tactic seems to be exhaustion. Can we just exhaust people so badly that they won't pay attention to the terrible things that we're doing? And the only way that we can fight that is to keep up with this constant spread of nonsense and talk about the things that we think are gonna be bad so that people are aware of what's going on. If it's privacy busting in the UK, if it's disastrous marketing for an expensive Samsung phone, if it's Google installing apps on your device without your knowledge, we got to keep on it. Every single time we take our eye off the ball, those companies and those governments get a little bit further. Every single time we give them ground, we don't get it back. And so we need to be present and aggressive in these topics and conversations and stick with it. It's the only way our markets get better. It's the only way consumers get an advantage in this. It's the only way legit investors aren't just taken for a ride by wild speculative investing brokerage houses and Jim Cramer types just farting around on cable TV. Those are your family and friends. Those are your retirement funds. Those are your pension plans, and they're all gonna get wrecked if we don't stay on top of this stuff. Your healthcare premiums are gonna get wrecked if we don't stay on top of this stuff. Your auto insurance premiums, your homeowner's insurance, your entire market, the price of eggs in California, you're gonna get wrecked if you can't keep up. So, I'm gonna have some fun stuff out this week too. I've got some more videos and reviews. Again, it's just like the flow is really starting to get there and the stuff is coming through. So be on the lookout. Some more fun things to talk about. Some stuff under embargo to talk about. Some stuff I almost broke the embargo on while producing this podcast, but thankfully I'm not that stupid. I'm stupid, but I'm not that stupid. So stay tuned. Across all the channels, like, share, subscribe. The sharing is really the most important part. It really helps bring new conversations, new faces, new voices to this, and I like that interactive quality. I like being able to talk through this stuff. And then it's just really the platforms get in our way. YouTube gets in my way now to finding new audience to talk about this stuff with. So
we all got to kind of help this out together. And if you have the means, I greatly appreciate the folks who are just joining directly at patreon.com/somegadgetguy. It's where I'm going to be bringing up more question and answer from the audience directly. It's kind of the safe place for me to host some of these conversations because we get to interact directly without a distinct gatekeeper just staying in between the kind of conversations we want to have. So, folks, I want you to have an awesome week. I want you to do awesome with your technology. I want you to be awesome with your technology. And I will catch you back here next week for another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. Be safe. Take care.